we go, who will be sharing insights with us as we go on, tools, strategies, things to help us get better, to empower us really to be able to tell better stories, to be able to tell truer stories, and to be able to tell impactful stories. So whether in advocacy, leadership, or personal development, whatever it is that we're doing, I'm sure that whatever we'll be getting from our speakers would be very, very useful for us. So to all our partners, speakers, and every participant, we want to thank you for believing in this vision and for showing up, So please take a moment to settle in, grab your notepads, and get ready for a truly transformative experience. I also would encourage us to open our minds to engage with curiosity and also to let the power of storytelling or whatever we'll be learning today to do it best for us, as we are inspired, as we heal, and even as we mobilize. So once again, I welcome us all to the Narrative Therapy and Storytelling for Branding and Advocacy professional course. And I hope that these 2 days would be an unforgettable experience for every one of us. So quickly in the chat box, I would like us to drop our names and where we are joining from. Your name, where you're joining from, and you can also include what you intend to gain, what you look forward to gain in this course today and tomorrow. So quickly we can do that. I will be reading out a few as I get as they drop in the chat or the comment box. So you tell us your name, where you're joining us from, and what you hope to learn in these 2 days on this course. Thank you. All right, we already have people's comments rolling in. All right, Jesu Joba Oshwolale, where are you joining from? You didn't tell us your location. We have Ifunaya Okoli from Lagos. You're welcome, Ifunaya. Peace Johnson Obi from Abuja. Thank you for joining us. We have Musa Ishaya from Kano State. How is Kano this morning? You're welcome. We have God's Favor Afe joining us from Ilori. You're really welcome. Jebedo Ali. I apologize if I didn't pronounce that properly. I'm sorry. Joining us from Jos, Plateau State. Amazing, amazing. I was born in Jos, so it's good to find my kinsman, my brother here. Okay, we also have Luca Abimiku from Nasarawa State. We have Fanturu Lohan from Jos Ekwa Theological Seminary. We have Edward Jonathan from Plateau, Bola Adenigba from Ilorin. Oh, thank you so much. It's really a pleasure to have us all. I know that I won't be able to take everyone, but I just wanted to. Yes, I was going to do that after I have introduced everyone. We have Ayodele John Alonge. Oh, we are so glad to have you, sir. He's joining us from Netherlands. He's one of our trustees in this organization and also an esteemed facilitator for this event. We are so glad to have you join us, sir. We have Pastor Sam Adenigba from Ekwa Good News, Ijagbo Para State. Curious to know how storytelling can positively shape and transform lives of God's people. Beautiful, beautiful. We have Binuyo Eriododo joining us from Lagos. And we have Opoko Ukamaka Vera joining from Para State. We also have Ibrahim Israel Ishaku from Jos Ekwa Seminary. Don't worry, I'll get to introduce myself also very soon. Olusegun Adeyemi Okunlola from Baptist College of Theology, Oyo. I hope to become a better communicator and storyteller who can shape my generation for Christ. Beautiful, beautiful. Olusegun Adeyemi Okunlola. Okay, I have taken that. Ayomiko Akol from Enugu. Is Enugu this morning. Wow, wow. It's so amazing to have people joining us from different parts of the country and even outside the country. So I can promise us that we are in for a really good time in this 2-day event starting from this morning. So like I said earlier, let's get our writing materials, our notepads, let's have them ready so that we can make jottings as we continue. My name is Damilola Sam Olaniyon, and I'm joining from Kwara State. And I am going to be the moderator along with my brother, Mr. Seun. You would hear from him very soon as we continue, as we progress in this course this morning, Mr. Seun Awoyemi, joining all the way from Jos. But I am Damilola Sam Olaniyo, and I am really pleased to meet everyone this morning. Good morning, I am Esther Funmilayo Oba, joining from Nigerian Baptist Theological Seminary, Ogbomoso. I hope to make transformational impact through storytelling. Beautiful, you're all welcome. So quickly, without taking, maybe when more people join, we have them just introduce themselves in the chat box. All right, so we will be taking a little orientation, some form of orientation from one of our facilitators, Dr. Godwin Adeboye. So please, I'd like to, before I hand over to him, I would like to implore us to make this very participatory. Let's comment, let's drop reactions, emojis. So when we introduce people, we can clap by using the reaction, the clap reaction. We can drop our comments, we can use emojis in the chat box. You know, I want us to be very involved as we go on today. So I'll be introducing Dr. Godwin Adeboye, who would be taking the orientation address and will be addressing us then before he moves into his session. So I want us to do it properly now. I am introducing to us Dr. Godwin Adeboye. Please let's welcome him in the chat box. We can also use reactions. We can clap, you know, let's welcome him. Dr. Godwin, over to you, sir. Dr. Godwin Adeboye, are you there, sir? I see your reaction, Pastor Adenigba. Yes, let's keep it coming while we wait for him. Let's welcome our speaker, one of the facilitators. Dr. Godwin. I don't know. All right, before he comes up, while we're still waiting for him, I would quickly give us a rundown of the things that we will be doing today, the things that we ought to look forward to, more like a program of events, even as we progress this morning. Yes, we have more people introducing themselves in the chat box. Esther Ayodele from Baptist College of Theology, or you're excited to be here. You're welcome, sir. Aboyemi Emmanuel Oluwasewayo from Jos. You're welcome. You are welcome. For people who said they couldn't see my face, I hope you can see it clearly now. It's really a pleasure to meet us all. So quickly, I would be running through some of the things that are to come up today that we are to expect. We would be having our keynote address coming up soon around 11:30 thereabouts with our keynote speaker, Mr. Seun Okinbaloye. We would also be interacting based on the keynote address. So every aspect of this event is important. So we need you to take notes through every part of the event, right? We'll also have our session that will be coming up soon by a session by Dr. Godwin Adeboye on the ethics and politics of storytelling, responsible communication in contested spaces. So Dr. Adeboye would be taking the ethics and politics of storytelling. We'll also still have to come today, Dr. Modupe Adekanye, who will be taking storytelling for corporate and individual branding. And we will be introducing our facilitators before they come up. So she would be joining us from Lagos by God's grace. We also have Adekanye that would be talking on storytelling for corporate and individual branding. It's packed section today. We also have Luann talking about storytelling for advocacy, a practical approach for multi-religious contexts. So we really do not want to miss any of these sessions that will be coming up later today. So please let's stay attentive and let's make it really, really participatory. Dr. Adeboye, do we have you now, sir? Hello, Dr. Adeboye. We have, Adesojri Emmanuel Ayolowo from Baptist College of Theology, Oyo. I am excited about the opportunity to participate in this program, and I look forward to the prospect of acquiring hands-on skills to impact the academia significantly through storytelling. Beautiful. Akinwale Opeyemi Daniel from Osun State. We're so glad to have you on the call. Akapo Gloriana from Landmark University, Kwara State. You're welcome. Ethan Setel, am I right? From Jos Equa Theological Seminary. We are so pleased to have you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Martha Tize from Federal University of Technology, Mina, Niger State. You're welcome. How's Niger this morning? We also have Obaluyi John Fidelis from Equa Theological Seminary, Igbaja. We are so glad to have you, sir. Thank you all for joining us. We still have more people that will be joining us on the call this morning as we move fully into the commencement of the program. So Dr. Adeboye, do we have you on the call now?
Yes.
Dr. Godwin Adeboye, you're welcome, sir. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mrs. Damilola, PhD in FEW. Thank you for your leadership and the administration you have provided. I also thank, can you hear me? Seun, Damilola, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Nice. So we are supposed to have, I'm not sure if Damilola has actually mentioned that. We are supposed to have Mr. Seun Okinbaloye now, but he's going to join in the next few minutes. And in a way, all the sections are packaged in such a way that there's nowhere to shift. So what is going to happen is that I'm going to give a certain part of my own presentation. And then once Mr. Seun Okinbaloye joins, in the next 30 minutes or so, or 35 minutes, once he joins, I'm going to give way for his keynote address. Then after question and answers with Mr. Seun Okinbaloye, and I'm going to resume my session to complete my session. Is that fine, Mr. Seun? Is that okay? And Damilola, is that fine?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So my own session is Module 2. Let me share my screen. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, sir. We can see your screen.
Fantastic. So my own session is Module 2. I think there are 7 modules.
Yes, you are.
Fantastic, fantastic. I think there are 7 modules altogether. There is Keynote address. At the end, there is Module 1, which is on research, storytelling as a research method. And then my own is second module, which is the ethics and politics of storytelling, responsible communication in contested spaces. And then Module 3, the third module is advocacy, followed by branding, and then followed by the digital space. I mean, the platform. There's going to be a technical module where everybody will place their hand on their computer and they will be taught a workshop on how to use certain platforms and softwares. And then you will be helped to have account with those softwares and platforms where you can then do your storytelling. And then this can be of importance to your ministries. Now, my name is Godwin. This is Module 2, the ethics and politics of storytelling. I'm going to start by providing some conceptual discussions, which will be technical. So in this session, there's going to be some conceptual discussions, and then there's going to be some technical sessions where we might be asked to go to different breakout sections, or we just do it everything here. There's going to be some discussion, some kind of technical section where we are going to look at some stories and do some analysis, and then do some technicality, and then bring out something that we need to use, some competencies that we need to use and have for our ministries as missionaries, as church leaders, as advocates, as ambassadors, as interreligious, as storytellers, as researchers, as theological students, and as preachers. What is a story? What exactly do we mean when we say story? The course is on storytelling, and then it might be in the best interest that we start our first session on what is story. A story might be a structured or an unstructured account of event or experiences or perspective or ideas. So a story is an account. Sometimes it is structured because the person saying it is intentional. It may be unstructured. If the person may just put out some story and it's not just a formal. There's what we call a narrative arc, where you have the introduction, the thesis, antithesis, and synthesis, and then conclusion. So some stories may not follow this formal narrative arc, but generally some stories are unstructured. However, majority of the stories that are told intentionally are structured story. And what is then this story particularly? It is sometimes the account of event, experiences, and perspective that are told to convey meaning, to convey truth, identity, or values. Stories is the story is account. Somebody is convinced or somebody is involved, and then somebody want to make some kind of meaning or to show his identity, or to also negotiate its value. It often includes a beginning, conflict, climax, and resolution, which I've mentioned. This is what we call narrative arc. Narrative arc involves the beginning of a story, like introduction of the story, and then you create a suspension where there are conflicting issues, and then you go to climax where you have the synthesis, and then you have a resolution. In theological or advocacy context, stories help people interpret suffering, hope, and moral responsibility. So in advocacy context, stories become very important because it embodies people's suffering, people's experiences, and their expectation. A story can be written or unwritten. If you can see my screen, this is an example of unwritten story. This is the former governor of Central Bank of Nigeria, Federal Republic of Nigeria, in the last regime, who served as the governor for Central Bank, I think for 8 years or thereabout. His name is His Excellency ex-governor Godwin Emefiele. Unfortunately, it's a namesake. When he was the CBN governor, the Central Bank of Nigeria governor, he was involved then in some allegations, which is now confirmed by the competent bank in Nigeria. He was involved in some alleged money laundering, financial corruption. So immediately after his tenure as the CBN governor, he was charged to court. In his first appearance in the court, in the major court proceeding, this is his picture entering the court. He entered the court with a very big Bible, King James Version Bible in his hand, to enter the court where he will be defending himself against the allegation of financial corruption. I'm not making a lot of sense about the corruption. I'm just telling you that by going to the court with this Bible in his hand, Emefiele was trying to narrate a story. He was trying to narrate a story. He was trying to Christianize his experience. He was trying to, although he will not say anything, he will not write anything by himself, but by going with a copy of the Bible, it was making some sense to Nigerians. This is a story of his innocence. It's either he was trying to tell Nigeria that I'm innocent, or he was trying to tell Nigeria that God has forgiven him, or he was trying to tell Nigeria that God knows about it. But what we know is that he was bringing a defined narrative into his story. And then by going with the Bible, he was trying to give us some kind of unwritten story. So a story could be written, could be unwritten, could be spoken. Sometimes your silence could be a story. A story could be verbal, could be non-verbal. A story could be expressed through symbols, through images, through gestures, through architecture. If you get to some communities, if you get to some villages, to some environment, you see, if you look at the popular architectural design, if you are an aesthetics, you will, that if you appreciate architecture, you will probably be able to demonstrate or have some kind of understanding of the dominant story in that environment. For me, as a scholar of Islam, if I get to a community where the majority are Muslims, I may be able to know that this is a particular way Muslims build their house. If I see a certain kind of architectural design, I may be able to say this is the symbol. This represents this kind of perspective and understanding. So a story is not only when somebody says it. It could be unwritten, it could be silent, it could be verbal, it could be non-verbal. It could be expressed through symbols, images, gestures, or architecture. It can take a form of oral tradition, social media content, visual art, or performative action. A story could unfold in past tense. It could be that you are retelling the history. It could be a present tense. You are shaping the current reality. It could also be you are narrating your story in form of expectation of what the future could be. A story, this temporal frame shapes not just the content of the story, but our audience emotionally. This is another story which is not which is written and unwritten. This is the former president of Nigeria, His Excellency former President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan. When he was campaigning for his presidential post, he used one narrative, he used one story. And I'll come back to this. In fact, if we have time, I will play some video or some campaign, and then we have some analysis of the campaign. Because this session is not only to discuss about possibility of story, but to actually give us technical competencies to narrate stories, to have analysis of a story, and then to interpret stories as a church leaders, as missionaries, and as researchers. This is a story by Goodluck Jonathan. Goodluck Jonathan, in his own time, the narrative arc that Jonathan brought to the scene was that he came from a very poor family, that he was a very poor person, and that he didn't have a shoe. I'll come back to that later. That he did not have a shoe. That and then using that to appeal to Nigerians, who are poor, to see him as a president of the people, to see him as someone that if he was elected, if elected, he will help those who are poor. And then you will see that majority of the flyers and majority of the narrative that was put forward by His Excellency Goodluck Jonathan was essentially the one that connect to the grassroots, to the context, to the grassroots among the people, where people, people begin to see some high, see him as a president who will be a leader that will solve the problem of poverty and economic inequality of the people in Nigeria. That's a story. So in political campaigns, people tell stories. political campaigns are essentially stories that are told for political purposes. This is another flyer by former President, His Excellency Goodluck Jonathan. Praying for luck. If you are praying for luck, vote for Goodluck Jonathan. And then you will see that story arc that was used by Jonathan and PDP at that time to narrate to incite people's feeling by saying that Goodluck Jonathan was an agent of God who has been helped through many ways. From somebody said it was the assistant senior prefect boy, head boy in the secondary school days. Somebody said his head boy was rusticated. Goodluck Jonathan became the senior boy, head boy, because of luck. Then he also became the chairman of a local government through luck. He became a governor when the sitting governor was caught in corruption act. Then and then he became the president by when his boss died. You see luck and luck and luck and luck. So the name Goodluck then became a story. Then became a story that it was put out there for political purposes. The incumbent president of Nigeria, His Excellency President Ahmed Bola Tinubu, also put a particular story that now became a popular story in churches, in mosques, in sermons, in public space, a Milokan narrative. What is a Milokan? A Milokan is simply a story where His Excellency Tinubu told us his political historical trajectory, giving us the samples, the evidence of what he has done in the past, and then standing on that to make a proclamation that he is the next president of Nigeria. And so this Milokan mantra became a story that President Tinubu used for political negotiation. To negotiate his way to the Aso Rock by simply telling a story. I watch that narrative very closely. I even watched Tinubu live when he was giving that in Ogun State. Before, around that time, there were a lot of conspiracies. It was very close to the primary election, then before the last general election. And Tinubu was losing his ground. There were many competitions, many contests. But when Tinubu came out to use that story to bring this narrative arc, he was able to convince many. And after that Milokan declaration in Ogun State, Tinubu became more prominent because he was able to use that story to negotiate and to silence many opposition, but more than this, to provide legitimacy, to give us the reason why he is the one that should be the president. Yeah. What is the story? If you perhaps I could play this. Just a minute. I will stop my screen. I'd like you to listen to a 3-minute story that was given 2 days ago by the Tour of Thief in Benue State, counting some stories, and this probably suffice to be an example of a spoken story. Just a minute, and then I will share my screen. I want to inform you, Mrs. Damilola and Mr. Seun, once you cite Mr. Seun Okinbaloye, kindly let me know, then I could give way for his presentation. Just a minute.
All right, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, just a minute. Share my screen. Yes, we are there. If you can see, can you confirm? Can you confirm? This is if you can
the exchange rates in this country and under
Yeah, nice. So we watch this from the 5th minute to the 8th minute. Kindly listen to this. After this, we will have some discussion sessions on what exactly is the narrative arc, the major thesis in this story, and what are the other stories that Totif was trying to counteract 2 days ago in Benue State when Ahmed Tinubu visited. Yeah.
It's not head.
Register for free. Choose from over 200,000 vehicles online. Get your car straight.
We do have grave concern about the misinformation and misrepresentation of the security crisis in Benue State. Your Excellencies, it is not herder farmers clashes, it's not communal clashes, it's not repressor attacks or skirmishes. It is this misinformation that has led to suggestions such as remain tolerant, negotiate for peace, learn to live with your neighbors. What we are dealing with here in Benue is a calculated, well-planned, full-scale genocidal invasion and land-grabbing campaign by herder terrorists and bandits, which has been on for decades and is worsening every year. Wrong diagnosis will always lead to wrong treatment. So we are dealing with something far more sinister than we think about. It's not learning to live with your neighbors, it is dealing with a war. The second apprehension, Your Excellency, we have is the politicization of the crisis. Politicians in the states are busy politicizing the crisis, passing blames instead of joining hands to address the crisis. We hear there are some politicians who will even prefer that the crisis should worsen so that it will be a basis for declaration of a state of emergency in Benue State. Your Excellency, this is unfortunate, and any politicians that prays for more people to die for such a project is against the wishes of the people of Benue State. Appeal. Your Excellency, Benue State has made a lot of sacrifices to keep this country united. Many of our people died during the Civil War. We paid the supreme price for this country to keep this country united.
Yeah, before we continue, I want us to have to raise some questions and then because to have some analysis from that short story. What are the possible contesting stories that Thought Thief wanted to correct? As he was saying his own story, he was also trying to disabuse some other stories. What particular contending stories did you notice in Benue State through these stories? You can on your microphone or you can put it in the chat. You can put it in the chat, yes. Let us welcome answers in the chat. What contending narrative, what contending stories do you see Thought Thief, yes, Akinwale Opeyemi, what contending narrative? Yeah. You are muted. Please on your microphone and then give your response. Opeyemi, you are muted, but your hand is raised. Could you unmute? Akinwale Opeyemi, we are not able to hear you. Yes. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Please, you can respond. Yeah.
I said he was trying to talk against politicians that he was saying that politicians that they are happy about what is happening in Benue State. Why that is not so? He was saying that what is happening was not that people should, that politicians were saying that people should learn to live and tolerate those that are harming them, while he was saying that was not the case, but what was happening to them in Benue State was an intentional genocidal attempt. That they are intentionally wiping them out. That they are doing that so that there can be a state of emergency in Benue State. That he said it's like some politicians are benefiting from what is happening in Benue State presently. So he was saying, and he was also emphasizing the fact that Benue State has made sacrifices, particularly due to their loss during the Civil War, and they have made sacrifices to keep their country united. And he was saying that the politicians that are willing and wishing for people to die in Benue State are wrong, and that it is not fair. This is my submission, sir.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. We also have some summation on the chart. Lack of tolerance is a false story. That the speaker contend that the problem is not lack of tolerance. The speaker is trying to say the narrative of tolerance is not true. The speaker that the problem is not political. The problem is rather that there's an attack on community by the enemy. Genocide, what he called genocide. Thank you so much, Professor Ayodele. Farmer elder crisis story. The speaker was trying to say that the farmer's elder crisis story is untrue. It's not farmer and elders clash. It is rather a genocide attempt. He was trying to, thank you so much, Musha Ishaya, colleague. Colleague Obali also said he was trying to contend for a retruth semantically conceived by political interest. Yeah, he was trying to contend for a retruth, which some politicians. So I think one thing that I sense from that story that Totif mentioned is that there's also some attempt or effort or opinions by some politicians in Benue State to also sponsor crisis so that Tinubu will also declare emergency in Benue, like in Rivers State. So why the primary reason why there is crisis in Benue may not be politics, but some politicians are also using the story for their purpose. And this is where storytelling becomes complicated. The contending story was that it is other class instead of planned genocide, which some politicians want to take advantage of for personal gain, like I've mentioned. The attack was intentional and calculated one, contending against the narrative that these attacks are reprisals. The speaker was trying to correct the fact that the matter in Benue was wrongly diagnosed. Yes, the speaker also mentioned the importance of rightful diagnosis. And that's what Mr. Seun Okinbaloye does every day on channel television. He will be here in the next few minutes. We are going to listen to him for his presentation. And then you are going to hear more of this. And then you can ask questions from him directly on political journalism, where Mr. Okinbaloye helps the nation to clarify, to get to the root of matters, and then to bring popular stories and then diagnose, because diagnosis is very important. And Mr. Okinbaloye continues to play a critical role in our national development by bringing a platform where stories are clarified and tested from the primary sources. The speaker was trying to correct the fact that the matter in Benue was only so diagnosis is important for correct policy formulation. The most contending narrative is the notion about other farmers. So it's not other farmer crisis. It is beyond communal clash. It's a decade-old war. So it's a war, not just a clash. An intentional attack, not a communal misunderstanding. The speaker is saying that every story passed out is with a political action, attempt to snatch their land by infidels. He tried to rewrite the narrative, yes. He tried to rewrite the narrative, bringing the truth to the fore rather than propagandas. The contending story told by Totif was the case, it's not clashes, yes. I think this is a massive interaction. He set the story straight and brought clarity to the issue that has been adulterated. One thing that colleague Okoyemi mentioned that I think is also good is also that the Totif also made emotional appealing to history of Nigeria by telling the story of how Benue as a state contributed to the to Nigeria to Nigeria development during the Civil War in 1967 to 1971, when a lot of Nigerians died from the Igbo side. And if you want to tell national story, one of the most emotional side of our national history is the Civil War. Is the Civil War. If you put Nigerian Civil War on YouTube, you will see a lot of narrative. If you listen to some of them, you will cry. You will then know why some Igbos still have some kind of notion against Nigeria up to today. And then you will see some narrative behind that story. And then you see some role that Yoruba people play, and that the Hausa people play, and that the North Central also play in that Civil War. And so Tortif was making appeal. That's Tortif, I think for the past 3 days, this speech by Tortif is making round on social media. Some people say Tortif said the truth to the face of Bola Ahmed Tinubu, because Tortif came prepared with a story that was particularly developed into arc, correcting the first story, saying the right story, and making appeal to Nigerian history. Now, what is storytelling? What is storytelling? Storytelling is an intentional art of crafting and communicating stories. So a story might be told unintentionally, but storytelling sometimes is intentional. It could be also oral, written, visual, or digital. Both creative and ethical practice, especially when stories shape memory, identity, and public understanding. In post-conflict and justice-oriented work, storytelling becomes a tool for truth-telling, persistence, and healing. Is every story told with good intention necessarily ethical? This is where we have to think deeper. Is every story told by missionaries, by pastors, by deliverance ministers, by Pentecostal preachers, by missionaries, by theologians, by researchers, by advocates, by politicians, by journalists, by brand experts? All these stories, sometimes they are told with good intentions, but are they all the time ethical? Storytelling is not neutral. Every narrative, whether personal, political, or theological, carries consequences. Stories shape public memory. Like I just mentioned, Civil War. If you want to say something in Nigeria now that we appeal to many people, especially people like Bola Ahmed Tinubu, Obasanjo, IBB, Peter Obi, if you want to narrate a story that will get their attention, make appeal to the Civil War, to Nigerian Civil War. The court is a collective public memory. It also reinforces ideologies and influences how justice, faith, and history are interpreted. In contested spaces, stories can either heal or harm. It can either liberate or manipulate. Ethical storytelling means holding space for both narrative beauty and moral accountability. Our guest from United States of America, Dr. Lun Anna, will be saying a lot about this storytelling for advocacy later today. Now, what are the relevant framework that we must mention when we want to speak, when we are mentioning storytelling? What are the important theoretical framework? The first one that comes to mind is narrative theory, which was popularized by Paul Ricoeur in 1974. This theory explored the deep relationship between memory, identity, and meaning. Memory of what you remember, your identity, and your meaning. It argued that storytelling mediates between memory and imagination. Between memory and imagination, allowing individuals and communities to interpret their past and project a coherent sense of self into the future. Paul Ricoeur argued that narrative do not merely recount events, they actively shape our understanding of time, our identity, our justice, by organizing experiences into intelligible wholes. So storytelling is organizing human experiences into intelligent, relatable metaphors. Admin, can you help us mute someone? Microphone is on. Then Paul Ricoeur in 1974 particularly developed a theory called hermeneutics of suspicion. This is a theory that states that a critical interpretive approach and urges us to question dominant narrative. The crux of this theory is when you hear stories, you must question the dominant narrative. You must suspect that the story you have heard, there are some hidden things underneath. And then you have to uncover hidden motive or power dynamics that shape the text or the story. The story, let me go to the second one. which is a liberation theology. Liberation theology is one of the perspectives that was formed by Catholic Church from Latin America that give particular attention to the people at the margin. And liberation framework is not only in theology, it's also in communication, it's also in other fields of study, particularly in humanities and social sciences, that give preferential option to the poor, to those that are on the margin. Liberation framework is one of the post-colonial framework or dynamic that see faith as solidarity. Liberation theology elevates forces of the oppressed, seeing the life story. Liberation framework focuses more on the life stories, because stories are not abstract. Stories are real, stories are emotional, and stories are life. People's story, when you tell people's story, you're actually narrating their lived experiences. And then in liberation theology, people's experiences are also seen as a viable text that must be understood, that must be analyzed, that must be interpreted, so that you'll be able to relate with them more. What is this telling us as church leaders, missionaries, experts, researchers, as scholars, as professors? We can use story to get to the ground. We can use the method of storytelling to get to the ground. Sometimes as a professor, we are there in the ivory tower. We do not have a direct critical link that connects us to the critical ground. We are formulating policies, we are formulating theories that are not necessarily relevant to the ground. Another one is feminist theology. One major thing I want to mention in feminist framework, feminist interpretive framework, is the ethics of listening. When we are speaking about storytelling, one of the framework is the ethics of listening. If you want to use story, for you to tell a good story, you must listen. You must listen. You must be a listener. You must listen to other people's story and understand their story. You must write your own story and listen to your own story and then understand yourself. Another one is political communication and post-colonial hermeneutics. One more that I want to mention before we leave this stage is the lived religion approach. Lived religion approach focused on everyday grounded level expressions and how individuals embody their faith in ordinary context. There is an approach now that the meaning that social things make, sacred things make, religious things make, or social narrative make, are not only among the officials, the expert, the technocrat. On the ground, there are some stories coming from the bottom, from the ground. From the ground, the stories coming from if you want to succeed as a marketer, as a theologian, as a professor, as a leader, as a pastor, as a missionary, as a brand expert, you have to listen to the ground. You have to develop a critical listening, ethics of listening to the ground, to the grassroots. When we say grassroots, we do not mean those who are poor. We are usually saying some conversation that take place where people that are the ordinary context in the market. When you see people greeting inside the Marua, if you are in North Central, people use Marua Kekena Pep. You enter Kekena Pep, and then you listen to some stories that people share in their context, some stories that people share in their state. And then you begin to wonder, you begin to learn something that you can never see in textbook, something that you can never see inside magazine. You see them taking place, happening inside during transportation. And then when you listen, you will learn. You will learn how do you do a shift? How do we have a shift from the official leaders, from the
Hello, sir.
Yeah, I think something went wrong with his network.
Yes, most likely his network. Please let's hold on, get him back online.
Apologies, my network fluctuated. Yeah, I hope you understand this part of this part of the word. Yeah, so I continue now to the session where we will have our technical session. Admin, please ensure that you check very carefully on the platform once Mr. Seun Okinbaloye joins. Then we can take his session. Can you hear me now, Seun?
Yes, sir. I'm with you, sir.
Yeah. So let me leave that. Storytelling. Then I also want to mention that storytelling is a research method. It is not popular here. It is not popular here in West Africa, particularly in Nigeria, but it is a research method. There is a method called autoethnography, which have now gained some increasing traction as a fairly qualitative research method. And this autoethnography, it is you are writing a PhD or you are writing a master thesis by writing your own story. This allows you to explore your lived experience, your identity, your trauma, your silence, your memory, to reflect narrative arc and narrative-rich analysis. An example of this is Telling the Self, a narrative autoethnography of pastoral trauma and healing in other parts of Nigeria. This is a wonderful PhD thesis title that you can write if you are into advocacy, into maybe history, or you are into pastoral study, you are into humanity or sociology. Yeah, one thing that storytelling does is that storytelling humanizes the experience. Storytelling bring the person, the embodiment into the space. Storytelling remove the abstract. Many of us lead, we do research, and when our research is abstract, in spite of what we are going through in Nigeria, you are still writing your research, your theoretical research on what happened in a Council of Nicaea. And all you do is that you do historical exposition on Council of Nicaea, or Council of Trent, or Council of Orange, or Council of Jerusalem in AD 15, and then that is all that you do. There is no particular aspect where you humanize, where you contextualize, where you forget about the top, and then you look at the ground. What happens on the ground? How can you connect to the ground as a researchers, as a scholars in humanity, field of humanity, and also as a brand expert, as a corporate manager, as a leader of an institution? How do you create a brand that does not really look at what happened in the West, but looking at what actually is obtainable here in the context? So storytelling in research is valuable for decolonizing methodologies, which now center on indigenous narratives and now focus on the people at the margin, the people who are at the margin, the women who are being victimized, the widows whose husbands were killed during the religious crisis of violence, the children who lost their parents in crisis, those who have been traumatized by one thing or the other, people whose voice are not loud, people who are outside of conventional epistemic structures. Storytelling allows us to have a touch with them. And then storytelling too is a method of preaching. A storytelling approach is a method of preaching. If you want to get your audience, I'm also a preacher. I still preach 4 days ago, and I preach nearly 2 Sundays in a month. And I have noticed that the sermon that you preach or that you develop that touches on the ground on the common experiences of people around you, invite more transformation than those that are preached only on exposition. So while it is good you do exposition, it's also the very best in your own interest, if you want to make impact, that you also bring some reality of life into the space. That you also bring some conversations that connect people, not only to their context, but to their, to the reality of life. I've seen people. I have a particular preacher. His name is Dr. Moses Owoja. He uses this method. He will start a sermon by narrating some stories, not a distant story that happens somewhere past or somewhere in a distant place, but a story that is closer to people, that people know, that people understand. So he will then move from that angle and move them to another level of the narrative arc, where it will bring people to the Bible reality to then interrogate the experience of people based on the biblical text. So it is not out of place for you as a preacher or as a missionary to start your preaching by getting one story, one narrative around. Don't bring a narrative that happens in Washington, D.C., except if that narrative is popular on social media. Go look at the people, their living experiences around them, and then bring a narrative. And then you can use, for example, you can use the parable of biblical root to invite community effort on gender justice and widow care. But sometimes Nigerian pastors use testimony-driven preaching to connect to personal or community story with spiritual reflection. However, sometimes there is no ethical consideration when some preachers do this. So when you want to cite stories, ensure that you are careful of the ethics of the story. Storytelling also is a mission, praxis. You can also use storytelling as a missionary to engage in faith story. To when you, for instance, now if you want to preach in Nigeria, you can look at the community where you want to preach as a missionary, and then look at one of the historical past incidents, not in the Bible now, but in their context, and bring that history to fore, and then explain that history, and then relate that history to the Bible, and then maybe a story of one of the heroes in the past in that city, in that community. Maybe a story of how that community waged war against some other communities in the past. Maybe the story of how that community settled between many mountains. They will listen to you because you are making critical appeal to their context. When you tell their story, you are no longer a stranger. When you tell their story, they will listen to you because by telling their story, you become one of them. Now, let us go to, I wouldn't know how much time I have, but I think at this point we can go to, a case study. We can have a case study. You have this case study in the course material that was sent to you by the administrator. It's concerning the fire incidents in Gidan Rafi in other parts of Nigeria. If you look at my screen, you will see the story. It concerns Gidan Rafi, a small town in another part of Nigeria known for its fragile peace between Christians and Muslims. On a humid Tuesday afternoon, violence erupted in Gidan Rafi after a student posted a controversial cartoon of a religious prophet in a WhatsApp group. Argument among youth quickly escalated that night. Mobs set fire to houses in two neighborhoods, one Christian and one Muslim. The most widely shared video showed a church building on fire with the caption, "Another attack on the church in northern Nigeria." In the chaos, 15 people died, 9 Muslims and 6 Christians. One of them was Grace Akinwale, a Christian nurse in her 30s, who was caught in the fire while helping her Muslim neighbor escape. She died of smoke inhalation, clutching the hand of a child from the other faith. There are 3 narratives to this story. The first narrative, the first fashion is the politician's fashion. In this fashion, in the lead up to national election, a prominent southern governor running for presidential election went to Grace's family and called Grace a Christian martyr and a national symbol of religious persecution. He pledged to rebuild the church and use grace blood as a reminder that Christians must never be silenced again in Nigeria. His speech aired on national television, ending with the phrase, "Vote for security, vote for justice." Opposition politicians from northern part of Nigeria dismissed this fashion as southern propaganda, claiming that Muslims were also victims and that the government was already addressing the problem. Meanwhile, another senator posted images of bomb mosque, claiming the violence was staged to defame Islam. The third fashion, the church fashion. Grace Church organized a nationwide prayer vigil titled "A Flame of Faith," the testimony of a nurse, Grace. Speakers shared how Grace died in the sanctuary of service, calling her death a seed for revival. The narrative spread quickly in Christian media. Songs were composed in her memory. Sermons declared her a symbol of how God preserved his own even in death. Few mentioned the Muslim child she tried to save. Her interfaith compassion was interpreted as her evangelical witness to the end. The church declined to participate in a proposed joint memorial with the local mosque, citing security concerns and theological reservations. Now, the Muslim fashion. The first fashion is the politician fashion. Second fashion is the church fashion. The third fashion is the Muslim community fashion. In the Muslim neighborhood, Grace became a quiet symbol of hope. The family of the child she saved called her a woman of light. At a local madrasa is Arabic word which means mosque. At a local mosque, her name was invoked to teach students that not all Christians hate Muslims. But when a Muslim cleric shared this view publicly, he was criticized online and accused of betraying the Ummah. Ummah is the Arabic word for Muslim community, worldwide and locally. So every Muslim living in Ilorin, they are into one Ummah, in spite of their differences. But when a Muslim cleric shared his view publicly, he was criticized online and accused of betraying the Ummah, betraying the Muslim community. Some said Grace was being used to shame Muslims. Others warned that engaging in her story was a political trap. The first question: what ethical issues arise when religious violence is narrated differently by different religious groups? Who should own Grace's story and why? At personal level. And then you can also analyze the motive and consequences of each fashion of the story. Political, Christian, Muslim. Which fashion tell the most truth? Is it possible for all three to be partly true? And then you can discuss how your church or institution should respond to when stories like this go to public. Now, our activity now that we're going to take now before Mr. Seun joins. I think we still have like 5 more minutes or so. We have 7 more minutes before we expect Mr. Seun to join the call. These are the questions on the screen. Kindly put in your opinion on the chat booth. How do different fashions of Grace story serve different political or religious goals? What truth is being emphasized, downplayed, or erased in each fashion? Where is ethical storytelling compromised, and where is it redemptive? Who owns a story? Can we honor a story without hijacking it? These are the 5 questions for us to reflect on. Yes. Can I possibly, yes, maybe stop sharing the screen? You can on your microphone, and then you can possibly say something, or you can put it in the chat. If you have any particular, Mr. Akinwale Okoyemi, if you want to come up, please come up. Mr. Akinwale Okoyemi.
I would say that the story of Grace Akpali, a namesake though, say that it's have different people's appeals, different angle, politicians, the Christian society and the Muslim society, they can talk about it. Being that we will see that I can say that from the politician angle, the politician who wants to campaign only sees that as an opportunity to tell his story, of what we do, just as you have explained to us about Goodluck Jonathan and Tinubu, how they share their story for their own campaign. So we cannot say that it's going to do what he said he will do because of the story. Now, from the Christian society, we will see that they use that story to let me say to say that they have upper hand, that their own religion is better than that of the Muslim, saying that Grace risked her life, died while saving a Muslim counterpart. She can be pictured as a Christian martyr, just as Jesus sacrificed his life for us. And the Muslim do not want to agree. Then looking at the story, 9 Muslims died, while 6 Christians died. We will say that the Christians, they are already downplaying that part. It's as though it was the Christians that were marginalized entirely, and the Muslims did not suffer any annihilation or massacre at all during the story. So the Muslim that says that Grace is a woman of light is because, let me say, probably because our family was saved during the incident. Then she was actually talked about because it has now become a war between 2 religions. So what I would say is that ethically, the story caused what I can call disunity. The story caused disunity between the 2 major religions that we have in Nigeria, which is the Christianity and the Islamic religion. Then who owns the story? I cannot really say. I can say, well, since Grace is a Christian, the Christian might want to claim that they own the story. They own the story. I can say that. Then personally to me, I can say that we can honor a story without hijacking it if our intentions are good, if you don't seem to input or direct the story for our own personal gain. Well, I say that is what everybody do now. That we turn the story around for personal gain. We narrate story for our own personal interest and personal gain. But we can actually honor the story without hijacking it if we tell the story rightly, if ethical considerations are put in place. This is my submission, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much for that very wonderful contribution.
Yes, sir.
From Ezekiel Musa, everyone was emphasizing to his own advantage. But I think the Christians owns the story. But the Imam was criticized what the Imam that was criticized was right. In owning the story, Christians should not emphasize only their part. Yeah, can we get 2 more contributors to this? I think we can then take the second question. What truth is being emphasized? I think Okoyemi mentioned that the fact that not even Muslims that were killed were higher in number than the number of Christians that were killed in the same incidents. Yeah, so the truth, the question of number, how many people were killed, who were they, then becomes important. Then where's the ethical storytelling compromise? And where is it redemptive? Can we have 1 or 2 more contributions before part A? So I think now we have with us our keynoter, Mr. Seun Okinbaloye. Yes. So we will stop this session now and then take it from there after the keynote address. I will take note, Ifunaya, your presentation. I want to invite Mrs. Damilola Samolaniyan to present the keynote and then the keynote address.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Adeboye. How are we all doing? I hope that we've been enjoying the session so far. I have been learning quite a number of things. I hope we're jotting also, because we need to make use of all of these things after now. So thank you so much for that session, Dr. Adeboye. While we can keep dropping our comments in the chat box, I do not want to interfere with that, but I will be introducing our keynote speaker to us shortly before he comes up to address us. I hope we can all hear me.
Very well, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. So Seun Okinbaloye is a renowned Nigerian journalist and a prominent figure in political journalism. With his exceptional skills, ethical conduct, extensive knowledge, and authority, he has sustained the spot as Nigeria's #1 political journalist for many years. Seun Okinbaloye's commitment to delivering accurate and unbiased news has earned him immense respect and admiration from his colleagues and the public. Seun has consistently demonstrated his expertise in political reporting, offering insightful analysis and in-depth coverage of Nigeria's political events. His work has been instrumental in informing the Nigerian populace about the intricacies of the country's political processes, policies, and events. He never shies away from speaking truth to power, which is why he has consistently extracted key information from tight-lipped, high-profile politicians. He's also shaped political discourse among the ruling class with his sharp-witted interviewing skills. With his well-decorated professional track record spanning over 2 decades at several public and private organizations, Seun Okinbaloye's reputation has not only grown, but he's also risen through the ranks and now holds a pivotal role as the political editor at Channels Television, Nigeria's most revered news organization. Without further ado, I'd like to present to us the keynote speaker for this professional course and training, Mr. Seun Okinbaloye. Please let's react in the comment section. Let's give him an applause as he comes forward. As he takes over the mic, rather, to give us the keynote address. So we can drop our reactions, we can welcome him, we can use emojis in the chat box to welcome our keynote speaker. Let's do that quickly as we expect Mr. Seun Okinbaloye. Good morning, sir. You're welcome.
Good morning. It's a pleasure. I don't know if you can hear me. I'd love to see a thumbs up if you can hear me, just to test my microphone that everything is fine. Oh, great. It shows everyone can hear me. And if it's possible, a few people can unmute so that I can know that you can hear me. I just want to know that.
We're with you, sir.
Fantastic.
We can hear you.
Audible, sir.
Yes.
Loud and clear.
Fantastic. Great. I just wanted to know that just like AI, we ask you, we want to just confirm whether you are human. I wanted just to know that I'm talking to humans and not bots. Thank you so much. I just want to thank first and foremost to Dr. Adeboye for the opportunity to be here and speaking to very great people who are on this platform. I wanted to thank you most sincerely for the opportunity to speak on this subject. And so, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is both an honor for me and a privilege to address you today, and I extend my heartfelt gratitude to the organizers and the leadership team of the Theo-Sight Institute for Research and Advocacy for this opportunity to discuss the intersection of narrative therapy and storytelling in branding and advocacy. Well, it's in a world where narratives shape perceptions. Yeah, is there a problem?
You can
Hello?
go ahead.
Okay, great. So I had someone so is it we belong to a world where narratives shape perceptions and drive actions. Storytelling emerges as a powerful tool to inspire, educate, and empower. Today, I will share some insight and perspectives on how we can harness the power of narrative to drive positive change and create a more compassionate, more just, and more equitable world. I just wanted to, I relate with, because I had to do a degree program, and most of the people who are in my class are either Gen Zs or the ones below. And one of the things that I've discovered is that they always say to themselves, I want to tell my story. So if they miss an assignment and they feel that a lecturer is victimizing them, you say, oh, I'm going to social media to tell my story. And one thing that comes to mind is the kind of story that they always want to tell. What does it mean for them to want to tell a story? What does it mean for them to want to narrate what they've gone through? And I look at it as an expression of their minds, of the way they feel, of what they bottled on the inside, how they feel about a certain situation. Look, let me tell you, the greatest tool of communication is storytelling. Because everything that we talk about in this life is more or less a story. You come back from work, you want to talk to your husband or wife, you want to say, oh, this is what happened at work today. You're basically telling a story. The story of how you didn't meet lunch, the story of how you missed out on the bus, the story of how you couldn't finish. There's always a story at every part of our lives. So what is storytelling in the first place? Storytelling is the art of conveying our experiences, ideas, or emotions through structured narratives, utilizing elements such as plots, characters, setting, and theme. And it's important I'm going to break all of this down for us to understand better. What is the plot? What are the characters in a story? What is the setting? What is the theme? What is the conflict? Now, storytelling serves as a fundamental means for humans to share information, experiences, and ideas, playing a crucial role in entertainment, education, cultural preservation, and instilling moral values. The key components of a story include 1, plot. The plot of a story is the sequence of events that make up the narrative. For example, the story of a man begins at birth, to when he went to primary school, to the secondary school, to university, to when he got married, started having children. He grows old until man dies. From the moment the man was born to the man dies is a sequence of plots put together that makes up the man's story. So plot is a sequence of events that happen or makes up the narrative. And so there might be a subplot. For example, in the story of a man that I've talked about now, might be the story of how the man went to university and became the finest or the best graduating student. Now, that is a story in itself. The story of how he went to university can start from when he wrote JAMB, when he got admission, when he got his school, 100 level, 200 level, 300 level, 400 level, until he graduated and becoming the best graduating student. That is a subplot in a plot. But that's an extension. That's a complication of what a plot means. But a plot basically is the beginning to the end of a story, the sequence that makes up the narrative. Characters is another element in storytelling. The people, the individuals, the elements that are involved in the story. That is the character. For example, I like to know who are the characters in the story or the narrative of June 12. I want to see people put it in the comment section. Who are the characters on the story of June 12? Anyone? If anyone wants to answer, you can unmute and let me know. Fantastic. Jesu Jaba said MK Abiola. Stephen Olawson said Abiola. Everybody's saying Abiola. Who are the others? Kudirat, fantastic. Moshood Abiola, yeah. IBB, yes, fantastic. Nigerians, I love that. Yoruba people, interesting. Government, okay. So interesting perspective on how we understand what a character is in a story, in a narrative. But the characters, without the characters, a story does not exist. Without a plot, a story does not exist. Because the story must have a shape. The character in the story gives the story the plot. The plot gives the story the shape. Now, setting, the time and place where the story occurs. The story of June 12 happens here in Nigeria. So it's a setting. The story is set in Nigeria. If you want to take a story of Seun Okinbaloye, Seun Okinbaloye is a journalist from Nigeria who hails from Oko in a Rekpodun local government area of Kwara State. If you want to tell the story of my life, you set it in where and place where my story is being told. The theme. This is the underlying message or central idea. For example, what is the theme of June 12th, for example? Can anybody tell me? Theme of June 12th. Who can give me? The theme of June 12th. Theme I've defined as the underlying message or central idea. Okay, election annulment, snatched election, presidential election, Hope 1993, yeah, fantastic. Kende Olushola, Stephen Lawson said annulment, Mrs. Peace Johnson said snatched election, Israel Emmanuel said leadership. Samuel Adenigba said the prospect that was not, fantastic. Esther Oba said justice and fairness. Godwin Adeboye said power struggle. Benjamin Aruna said handing over of leadership. Obaluyi John said power tussle. We can go on and define the theme of June 12. And, it could be the struggle for transition from military to democratic rule and a presidency or a transition that never happened, which led to the death of people. So we could give it, we can weave the theme the way we can understand it. So one thing that makes a story interesting, one thing that gives a story life is conflict. The challenge or problem faced by the character is what the conflict is. Now, what makes a story interesting is not just the rosy, nice part of the story. It's also the issue that has happened, which is a conflict. So let's take note of all of this. For example, what is the conflict of the story in June 12th? The annulment of the election, for example. That is the conflict. That's the challenge. When the annulment happened, there was a problem. The election couldn't hold. They jailed MK Abiola. The struggle to retrieve the mandates began. So in all of these elements, let's not forget, what are the elements? There are 5 of them. The plot, characters, setting, the theme, and conflict. These are what makes up the elements of a story or storytelling. Now, let's go to what a narrative therapy. Is there anybody who wants to ask a question based on what I've explained in terms of what storytelling is and its element? Or I'm going to ask a question. Any question before I move on?
There will be a segment for Q&A, sir.
I intentionally, I like to keep people in the loop when I wanted, because I'm transiting into another phase of the conversation. So it's important for us to get there. Okay, so Jesus Joba said,
I have a question. Yes, sir.
Can there be a story without conflict, sir? In storytelling, there could be a... Is there any story without a conflict? Almost impossible. It might happen. Is there a life without a challenge or a problem? Right. So if you watch a story, either in a movie or in any kind of, if someone is telling you a story and the story does not have a but, a challenge, a problem, an issue, the story doesn't sometimes get the attention or the attention of the people listening or the people watching. So yes, there could be a possibility of a story without a conflict. But in storytelling, when we talk about the art of storytelling, the conflict is very, very important. All right, let's move on to what narrative therapy is. Well, narrative therapy, co-founded by Michael White and David Epstein, offers a powerful approach to personal growth and transformation. At its core, narrative therapy recognizes that our lives are composed of multiple stories, and it's through these narratives that we give meaning to our experiences. What set narrative therapy apart is its non-pathologizing approach. Rather than viewing individuals as flawed or broken, narrative therapy separates people from their problems, allowing them to reclaim their identities, empowering them to reframe their life stories and develop new perspectives. By externalizing challenges and understanding problems as distinct from harnesses the transformative power of storytelling to shape our experiences and that honors the complexity of human experience and empowers individuals to rewrite their stories, reclaim their narratives, and live more authentic lives. So, what are the core principles of narrative therapy? So, there are externalize problems, reframe stories, reauthor agency. Okay? Externalize problems, reframe stories, reauthor lives, foster agency. Now, storytelling for branding and advocacy. Storytelling is a powerful tool in branding and advocacy, enabling organizations to connect with their audience on a deeper emotional level, fostering trust and inspiring action. By sharing authentic narratives that reflect a brand's values, mission, and the impact of its initiatives, storytelling humanizes the brand and fosters trust and loyalty among consumers. In branding, a compelling story differentiates a brand in a crowded market, making it more memorable and relatable. It transforms a brand from a mere product or service into a meaningful experience that resonates with consumers' aspirations and emotions. We probably will remember the stories that were told in some brand promotionals. For example, you remember the brand promotion of Picnic. The story, can we remember it? When they say, Kanu, one day you go make us proud. It's easy for us to remember. If you remember the story of Guinness during the World Cup at some point, that says, my friend Odeme is a great man. These are stories that can be remembered, although they're story told in branding, but they are very deep, you know, because they help to push the story further. So in advocacy, storytelling is instrumental in driving social change by highlighting personal stories and real world impacts. Advocacy campaigns can inspire action, raise awareness, and mobilize support for causes. These narratives not only inform, but also engage and motivate audiences to participate and contribute to the cause. So, what are the key impacts of storytelling in advocacy? One, humanizing issues. Personal stories transform abstract problems in tangible experiences, allowing audiences to connect emotionally and understand the real-world implications of issues like poverty, discrimination, and environmental degradation. Fostering empathy, that's another point. Narratives enable individuals to see the world through others' eyes, cultivating empathy and compassion. This emotional resonance can inspire action and support for social causes. The third one is mobilizing action. Effective storytelling not only raises awareness, but also motivates individuals to engage in advocacy efforts, whether through volunteering, donating, or participating in campaigns. The fourth one is shaping public perception. Consistent and compelling narratives can challenge stereotypes, shift cultural norms, and influence public opinion, paving the way for policy changes and social reforms. And the last one is strengthening marginalized voices. Storytelling provides a platform for underrepresented communities to share their experiences, ensure diverse perspectives, and heard and considered in advocacy efforts. Now, let's talk about the power of narrative and storytelling in the digital age, because that is very important. That is the world we live in today, and we need to understand how it works. So stories shape our identities, inform and experience our experiences, and influence our perceptions. They are the threads that ties up our humanity together. Consider the narratives that have shaped your life. How have they inspired you, challenged you, or limited you? The power of narrative lies in its capacity to connect us, to convey our values and our beliefs, and to drive change. Reflect on the stories that shape our world. What narratives we're telling ourselves and each other? What impact are they having on our lives and communities? In today's fast-paced digital world, storytelling has become more crucial than ever. With the proliferation of social media platforms, nearly everyone has become a content creator. However, what distinguishes some creators and brands from the multitude is a unique approach to content creation, which is storytelling. Storytelling transcends mere content creation. It is about crafting narratives that resonate emotionally with audiences. In an era where attention spans are fleeting, a compelling story has the power to captivate, engage, and inspire action. Brands that master the art of storytelling can forge deeper connections with their audiences, fostering loyalty and trust. Now, let's look at some brands and how exceptional they've been in their storytelling abilities. Let's look at, for example, Nike. The Dream Crazy campaign, that's Nike's campaign, which was narrated by Colin Kaepernick, is a stellar example of a story, both storytelling, by aligning with a powerful social message. Nike not only reinforced its brand identity, but also inspired millions. Let's look at Dove, the Real Beauty campaign, which redefined beauty standards by celebrating women of all shapes, sizes, and ethnicities. Let's look at MTN Nigeria, the campaign on We Move. The campaign is a testament to the power of storytelling and branding. Rather than merely promoting its network services, MTN shared stories of individuals overcoming challenges, thereby positioning the brand as a catalyst for resilience and progress. Another story is the story of Infinix Mobility, the Hottest One campaign. That campaign centered on discovering and promoting young, talented Nigerians by following their journeys and successes. Infinix not only showcased the capability of its product, but also highlighted aspirations and achievements of Nigerian youth. Beyond the established brands, Nigerian creators are harnessing the power of storytelling to build influential personal brands. And you discover that a lot of brands now use influencers to tell their stories through comedies. You look at the story of Tayo Aina, a Nigerian filmmaker, YouTuber, and photographer. Tayo Aina has gained over 1 million subscribers by showcasing African culture, businesses, and lifestyle. Through documentary-style content, his storytelling approach challenges negative stereotypes and highlights the richness of African experiences. Another person is Shan Comics. His picture is right there on the screen. He started with memes and skits. Shan Comics has now evolved into a prominent figure in Nigerian comedy. His storytelling blends humor with cultural insight, resonating with a wide audience and earning recognition in campaigns like Meta's Made by Africa, loved by the world. Meta had to ask him to do that. You know Mr. Macaroni, who is a brand ambassador for a car. Let's talk also about Pastor Jerry Eze. Through his new season, prophetic prayers and declaration, he wished to gather real-life testimonies of breakthroughs, miraculous healing, answered prayers, survivor stories, even on a plane crisis at the NSPPD, into his daily broadcast. This narrative strategy builds hope, forges a global faith-driven community, sustained public engagement with over 90,000 peak viewers on YouTube, and exemplifies a powerful message of resilience rooted in what God cannot do does not exist. Please permit me, give me 1 second, please. Sorry for that little break. Now, I could use my own story, my work as a broadcaster, as I exemplify how storytelling can be a powerful tool for building personal brand and influencing public opinion. My approach to journalism is rooted in storytelling. I love to tell stories. I believe that every political event has a story that deserves to be told with clarity and context. Hosting my weekly program, Politics Today and Sunday Politics, has allowed me to engage with key political figures, extracting critical information through compelling narratives. Through storytelling, I've been able to build a personal brand that resonates with audiences, fostering trust and engagement. It's a testament to the power of narratives in shaping perceptions and driving change. In conclusion, there is the transformative power of storytelling. And as we conclude, it is evident that storytelling transcends mere communication. It is a transformative tool that shapes leadership and engages the public across both faith-based and secular spaces. Mastering professional storytelling requires practice and intentionality. Leaders should focus on authenticity, emotional resonance, and clarity to craft narratives that inspire and mobilize others. By doing so, they can harness the transformative power of storytelling to lead effectively and engage the public. In closing, I encourage each of you to reflect on your own stories, the experiences that have pushed you, the challenges you have overcome, and the lessons you have learned. These narratives hold the power to inspire, heal, and transform. And as you continue your journey, everyone, may you find strength in your stories and courage in sharing them with the world. Thank you very much, everyone.
Wow. Thank you so much, sir. Please, can we show our appreciation, reactions in the comment section using emojis? You can clap, you can write, you can type. Thank you so much, sir.
Wow. You're welcome. Thank you so much.
That was quite a speech. I realized that some people were dropping their comments and questions while you were delivering the keynote speech. So we will take some of them. But I mean, I personally have a lot of take homes from the things that he has said. And I think that one of the things that stood out for me while you were talking is the fact that the greatest tool of communication is storytelling, which means that it is an aspect of our lives that we cannot ignore. And we cannot communicate effectively without telling our stories properly. And that was really beautiful. And another thing that Mr. Seun mentioned while he was speaking to us is the fact that there is a transformative power in storytelling, which means that your story has the ability to transform. And I think that all of this key things that he mentioned, yes, people are still, the comment section is blowing up. Thank you so much, sir, for that wonderful speech that you have given. So quickly, we will take questions as we interact with what he has said. He spoke about authenticity, about practice and intentionality. All of those things are our beautiful take-homes from this speech. So one of the questions we have, although we had someone react to it in the question, was that, what do you mean by conflict? I'm trying to go back to that particular question that says it was asking about conflict. So what do you really mean by the conflict of the story? That's one. We also have a question that says that, thank you so much, sir, that was great. Okay, that's a commendation, not a question. Thank you so much, sir, that was great presentation. Then we have a lot of thank you, sirs. Thank you, scholar. Thank you so much, sir, for this immense insight. Sir, does plot have to take a particular sequence? That's the second question that we would like you to attend to. Sir, does plot have to take a particular sequence? We also have, yes, Stephen Olaoshun said, great one from the guru himself. Thank you. Obaluyu John says, this is wow. While whetting my appetite, expecting more, the session came to an end. Thank you, sir. Don't worry, we still have a lot of, that is in store for you today. A lot of thank you, sir. And we have another question. Sir, what practical disciplines are needed to be a great storyteller and story analyst? What practical disciplines are needed to be a great storyteller and story analyst? Another person said, can there be positive, that's Ifunanya Nwachukwu. She says, can there be positive conflict? When does storytelling begin to breach the boundaries of ethics? Can there be positive conflict? When does storytelling begin to breach the boundaries of ethics? We have a question from Danlami Godfrey that says, sir, what is the difference between storytelling and history? What is the difference between storytelling and history? Samuel Adeniga says, does every story transform? Does every story transform? So I would allow you the time to comment or respond to this question, sir. Over to you, Mr. Okinbaloye.
Thank you very much. So let me begin. The questions are quite a few. So I'm looking at where I'm going to start from, which was actually the first one. Let me look at the first one.
The first is the person who was asking that what is conflict in storytelling?
Fantastic. Let me go back quickly to what conflict is. So when we hear conflict in the storytelling, our mind comes to when two people are fighting. All right. In storytelling, conflict, in fact, I will complicate the matter for you. In complicating the matter for you, is also for you to be able to have a very strong ability or understanding of how to use storytelling. Now, let's listen carefully. A conflict is a challenge or problem faced by the characters. And I use the story of June 12, for example. June 12 was an election that everybody was happy to go back after many years of military rule. Babangida has been in power for about 9 years. Everybody wanted the military to go. Oh, these people cannot talk, no freedom of speech, People want military to go. All of a sudden, we heard that election was going to come. Military, when they come into power, the intention was not to stay. They wanted to, there's a lot of corruption. Those are the reasons they give. Corruption, there's maladministration. But military announced stay for longer. Agitation was there. Nadeko, they were fighting abroad, home and abroad. Military must leave. Civil rights organizations, military must leave. Then, after several attempts at organizing an election, there was a composition of NEC, National Election Commission. There was organization of political parties. SDP and NRC emerged. We got candidate. Bashir Tofa became the candidate of NRC. Abiola became the candidate of SDP. They went to that election. The hopes are high. The story of June 12 started. We went to that election. But what happened? The results were supposed to be announced. All of a sudden, Babangida annulled the election. That is a challenge or the problem in the story of June 12. Right. Do we understand? For example, let me bring a natural story. The story of a child that grew up in a family home. The father is a pastor. The mother is a very strong and very active worker in the church. This child is being sent to go and study abroad. And as soon as the child lands abroad, 2 weeks after landing abroad, the child was arrested because of drugs. That could be the challenge. That could be the conflict. Then we start telling the story of the child. What happened? How did he leave home? He left home. What is the background? We start telling the story. Okay? So I hope we understand that the concept of conflict. And I learned the song, someone was asking if the plot, what was it exactly?
Okay, I could take the questions for you so that you just respond.
Yeah. There was a second question about plot.
Plots have to take a particular sequence.
So yeah, in storytelling, for example, a plot doesn't have to take a particular sequence, right? Plot doesn't have to take a particular sequence. For example, it makes the story very interesting to watch sometimes when you twist the plot. Instead of starting a story of the person from when the person was given birth to, you could start a story from the day that the person was arrested. So how did he get into prison? So you then the story then begins to unravel. So plot does not have to be sequence. In fact, there are different kinds of plots. There's what we call the linear plot. The linear plot is the straight jacket, the beginning, the middle, the end. The man was born, he grew up, and he died. Linear plot. There is also what we call the cyclical plot, where the story may have started from even the end or, and finish in the beginning. You see someone who was drunk and had an accident, and that's where the story started from. And you take the story to where the person was born. That's a cyclical plot. So it doesn't have to tell. One thing that is very important in us telling a story is that storytelling is an art, and we need to be able to use it well to hold the attention of whoever is watching. But what is important is that in your storytelling, you need to understand that there must be a plot. You need to understand that there must be a setting. Who are the characters? What is the conflict? What is the theme of the story? What am I trying to test? What am I trying to say in this story? In fact, if I want to complicate it for you, I would say sometimes create what we call a crisis. The crisis in some story is what will make you to watch. You see a woman who just gave the husband a dirty slap. Boy! That is where the crisis started from, and it leads to the conflict. The problem starts. Now, the crisis then agitates the mind of the viewer or the listener or the person that is reading the story. Say, why would a woman now be slapping the husband? What did the man do? What happened? But if you start telling me the story of how the man was born in General Hospital, how he went to primary school in Taiwo Road, how he then went to university in University of Ibadan, and did the master, and after, it might not be as interesting as when I go straight to where the crisis and the conflict is, and I hit it on the head, and I start telling you the story. You want to know what exactly happened. So our art of storytelling must be very apt. It's very key. And how do we become a master of this? Is by constant practice, understanding of it, and constant practice. Someone said, what practical disciplines are needed to be a great storyteller and great analyst? Now, you need to be able to understand the whole story. If, for example, and people tell me, oh, the way you do your program, I love the way you, and I tell you a lot of the times, I say sometimes that the APC is in trouble. The party is in deep crisis. But I'm going to tell you how this crisis started, and I'm going to bring to you someone who is going to tell you how the problem can be solved. Now, I'm not telling you, I've told you what the problem is. So it's agitating your mind, and you want to hear it. So ability to be able to lean on the conflict of a story and be able to plot your story in a very creative way helps to hold your audience, and it helps you to be able to be a good storyteller and great analyst. Can there be positive conflict? Yes, there can be. And someone said, when does storytelling begin to bridge the boundaries of ethics? Now, when you are not truthful to a story, when you are telling a story that there is privacy, confidence that is being broken, these are ethical breaches in all of this. Someone said, what is the difference between storytelling and history? History is just a record of events. Storytelling is the ability to tell that same history or the story of an event that's happened in a creative way that will hold and captivate the person watching. Does every story transform? Most stories transform. Most stories transform. Depending on what that story is, they could transform. Should every story be a live experience, or can a speaker be creative enough to create a story around his or her delivery in order to create the needed effect like Jesus did with parables? All stories may not be a live experience. Like you mentioned, yeah, Jesus used parables to bring home the point that he wanted. Use another story to be able to bring home the principle and the point that he wants to tell. How do stories resolve the conflict in today's society? Very important. So it comes to the point of the theme. What is the theme? Take, for example, we're looking at those who just want to get rich quick. And one way you can tell the story of why people should not chase wealth in a get rich quick manner is to tell them the consequences and the experiences of those who have done it before. By people seeing those experiences, they can be able to learn and it can change the society. All right. So I hope that I'm able to answer a few of the questions that have been raised.
Yes, sir. You have done justice to all the questions that came up during your lecture. Thank you so much, sir. Please, can we once again appreciate Mr. Seun Okinbaloye in the comment section, even for the brilliant responses that we received to the questions that were asked. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, sir. Dr. Adeboye, do you have something to say to our keynote speaker before he takes his leave?
Thank you, Damilola. On behalf of the Board of Trustees, and the preparation, which we have seen in the slide and in your presentation. We also particularly appreciate your contribution to national development in Nigeria and how the Lord is using you to bring sanity, integrity, and inclusion into the public space. We hope to see you again tomorrow when we'll be giving full-fledged appreciation and vote of thanks. Until then, please accept the best regards of all of us at Theo-Sight. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your sacrifice. Thank you for dedication. We hope to see you again tomorrow.
Thank you, sir.
So much. Yeah.
Have a great day. Bye.
Yeah. Damilola, can you hear me?
All right, Dr. Adeboye, I was thinking that you could continue with your session now, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Auntie. Yeah, so I think we then go back to the section. Perhaps we can just have a minute of hymn. You can just pick one hymn, and then after this hymn, you can continue with the. We already have a story that I've presented that we will analyze practically when we come back. But I want us to relax so that we can, so that will not be too. It will not be. At least we take some breath, some breathing in and some breathing out before we before we continue. Just a minute. Yeah, so I welcome you back to my session to complete the conversations we had. I just want to remind you on behalf of Theo-Sight that there are still more sessions taking place today. There's be a session from Luan Sabatier from United States of America. There will be a session from Dr. Modupe Adekanye, and there's going to be a session by Adekanye on branding, on advocacy, and then taking this storytelling further and further. So you have all the sessions today, and then tomorrow there will be more sessions touching on various aspects of this storytelling. I also want to mention that the attention is more on the practice, on the practical session. So all the sessions are tailored toward how exactly do you take this further by practicing what you see being displayed during this course. So it is not going to be that it will be a course that you just take, and then you leave the course and you are just asking yourself, what exactly am I taking back from this course? And what exactly am I going to do after I've taken the course? This time, this course is particularly developed in such a way that every session comes with some practice, something that one could take from this back to your space. And then right after the course, you begin to do something gradually from what you have learned from the course. And that is my own explanation of every course. Every course must introduce the participant to new competencies, to new skills, that after that course, they have gathered, they have learned many things they have never taken note before, or things they have been taking granted before. So we had a story of a nurse, Grace, who was involved. This is the story displayed on the screen. I want us then to, I will take the story again, and then we can go further to analyze the story. Then from there, we go to another section, which is on reflexivity and positionality in storytelling. Now, again, I take the story. The fire in Gidan Rafai, the setting is, Gidan Rafai is a small town in northern part of Nigeria. It is known for its fragile peace between Christians and Muslims. On a Human Tuesday afternoon, violence erupted in Gidan Rafai after a student posted a controversial cartoon of a religious prophet in a WhatsApp platform. Arguments among youth quickly escalated. That night, mobs set fire to houses in two neighborhoods, one Christian and one Muslim. The most widely shared video showed a church building on fire, with the caption, "Another attack on the church in northern Nigeria." In the chaos, 15 people died, 9 Muslims and 6 Christians. One of them was Grace Akinwale, a Christian nurse in her 30s, who was caught in the fire while helping a Muslim neighbor escape. She died of smoke inhalation clutching the hand of a child from the other faith. There are three narratives. The first narrative is politicians' fashion. In the lead up to the national election, a prominent southern governor running for the president election, presidential seat, visited Grace's family and called her a Christian martyr and national symbol of religious persecution. He pledged to rebuild the church and use Grace's blood as a reminder that Christians must never be silenced again. His speech aired on national television, ending with the phrase, "Vote for security." Why another senator posted images of burned mosque, claiming the violence was staged to defame Islam. The second narrative is the church fashion. The Grace Church organized a nationwide prayer vigil titled "A Flame of Faith." The testimony of Nurse Grace, speakers shared how Grace died in the sanctuary of service, calling her death a seed for revival. The narrative spread quickly in Christian media. Songs were composed in her memory. Sermons declared in a symbol of how God preserved his own even in death. Few mentioned the Muslim child she tried to save. Her interfaith compassion was interpreted as an evangelical witness to the end. The church declined to participate in a proposed joint memorial with the local mosque, citing security concerns and theological reservation. The third fashion, the Muslim community fashion. In the Muslim neighborhood, Grace became a quiet symbol of hope. The family of the child she saved called her a woman of light. At a local madrasa, that is, at a local mosque, her name was invoked to teach students that not all Christians hate Muslims. But when a Muslim cleric shared this view publicly, it was criticized online and accused of betraying the Ummah, that is, accused of betraying the Muslim community. Some said Grace was being used to shame Muslims. Others warned that engaging in a story was a political trap. Now we have some certain activities, but the questions we were discussing before we pause for the keynote address. This is the question on the screen. How do different fashions of Grace story serve different political or religious goals? What truth is being emphasized, downplayed, or erased in each fashion? Where is the ethical storytelling compromise? And where is it redemptive? Who owns a story? Who should own Grace story? These are the questions for us to discuss now in this session. If you want to discuss, you can raise your hand, or you can put in the chat, or you can on your microphone, then you can discuss. Or you want to say your point, maybe 1 point or 2. Yeah. These are the questions. Responses. Yeah, Pastor Baluyi, can you come with your conversation? Yeah. Pastor Baluyi, you are muted. Can you unmute your microphone, Pastor Baluyi? Pastor Baluyi,
Sir,
can you unmute your microphone?
Doctor, sir, you had some comments before you went on break. I could read them to you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Damola. Can we have those comments and answers and responses?
Yes. So Ezekiel Musa said everyone was emphasizing to his own advantage, but I think the Christians own the story. But the imam that was criticized was right. In owning the story, Christians should not emphasize only their parts.
Yeah, I think for me, let me take it one. I think this is a wonderful response. My own particular take is the Christians must not only share their own story, they must also strive to understand the conflict. They must also understand the contending story, another perspective. Sometimes when we share our story in Nigeria, our story as Christians of persecution, our story of trauma, our story of Fulani S-men attacking our churches, sometimes we tell our own story. And I'm on this space. Recently I went to somewhere in Jos, and I did a research in a community that was attacked in April, and 53 people were 53 people were killed in a day. So I went there to do a research on behalf of Theo-Sight. And then I understand when I wrote my findings, I sent to our partners in the US, in the UK. We're about to put the story will be published very soon, maybe next week. The story will be out on our website. However, one of our partners responded saying, is it possible for us to also have opportunity to listen to the stories of the attackers? Can we have a feeling of what they feel? All this while we have been on our own mind, we have always said what we think is the reason why they attack Christian communities. We do not have the all-rounded perspective that we are going to also listen and say, we have seen one Fulani S-man, maybe who has converted to Christianity, or who has been transformed, who has repented, who now tell us why exactly do they persecute Christian communities. So sometimes I think it is this professor, very popular professor from the eastern part of Nigeria, Chimamanda Adichie, who has a popular saying that you must not take one side of the story. Every story has two sides. When you say your own story, you must be mindful of other side to your story. There may be other persons, other opinion around your story. This is important to us in our administration, in our branding, in our relationship, in our advocacy, in our research, in our journalism. When you write a journal, do you also take note of other person's perspective that is not within your own perspective of the story? Can you pick the second one?
All right, sir. Jesu Joba says the initial Muslim version seems to be more accurate and ethical. This is because it made a conclusion based on facts, all the facts, but the political version served only selfish reasons. It was an hijacking of truth to serve personal reasons. The Christians was one-sided and thus imbalanced. It is also unethical.
And that is the point that I just discussed. The Christians,
yes.
We must realize, sometimes we become so emotional, we become so offended that we amplify our own stories and think that other side to our story does not exist. So we must, the Christians, I work in this space, and I have that first-hand experiences when you write stories of what happened in Nigeria to partners in some other places, and then they raise some questions. Yeah, they raise certain questions. Sometimes we might be emotional, we might be carried away, we might think what we. So we must also, we may not be able to have other person's perspective. We may not need it, but we may have that consciousness, that understanding. We come to that knowledge that we understand that other perspectives exist. And so that helps us on how we write our story. We use the way we write it to be different to when we think our story is the only way. You see, we become categorical if we think our own story is what exists. The next comment, Damilola.
Who owns a story? Is the oppressed person or community? It could be Christian or Muslim. That's Ibrahim Israel Ishaku. I think is just a comment.
Yeah. Then
we have Okunlola Olusegun. Yeah. Okunlola Olusegun says, part A, it will create division among different groups. The community should own the story. Then someone said that, can you differentiate? Ruth Demitope says, can you differentiate between a story and a case study, sir?
Yeah.
Then Esther Ayodele.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, I think the comment on who owns the story. Everybody can hold the story, because everybody can write their own perspective about a phenomenon. But everybody must be responsible. I mean, you must take responsibility for what you write. For instance, now I went to Kwale in around just after Miango. I did a research there.
Hello, Dr. Adeboye. Are you there, sir? Mr. Seun, what did you say?
Yeah, I think he's online now. I think he's on now.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think, can you hear me, Damilola? Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm with you, sir.
So I think what is more important is to be responsible. What do I mean by being responsible is, if I visit a village or a community that is affected by crisis, and I take the stories of the people that I interview or I interacted with, I must not claim the ownership of that story. I must reference and say, I interview people who were there when it happened. Or I say I interview people who also had about the incidents from a secondary source. So anyone that read my story of that incident will know the limit of my authenticity and legitimacy. But now the ethical problem comes into a situation where someone now wants to say, I was there. Or the person did not clarify if he was there when that thing happened, or if he got it from a secondary source. So if you were there, if you say, I was there, the person who was there is the owner of the story. The one who went through the incidents is the owner of the story. Grace is the owner of our story. It is Grace's story. No one can tell the story like Grace, because it was Grace that went through the challenge, these incidents. Any other person that wants to write that same story must only write the story as a secondary owner of the story, not a primary owner of the story. If we have this sense of responsibility, whatever we write, our readers or our listeners will understand the limitation we have in terms of the ownership of the story. And then on the difference between case study and story. A case study is more technical. Case study, we use case study more in the official space. A case study may have a very strict pattern, but a story may not necessarily have that very strict pattern, very official nomenclature. A case study is more corporate. A story can be less formal. It may not be a formal kind of case study we have in research setting or we have in corporate setting. A story may just be, you are going somewhere, you had something that happened, it is not intentional when you had it. When you are dealing with a case study, you are more intentional, you are more ready. But a story can just happen to you when that thing happened to you, that you're not prepared to listen to the story. You are not prepared to say, I want to go and study this story. You are just going on your own. You never took it for granted. In fact, you may have got a story you never take for granted, but after 2-3 years, the story comes back to your memory, and then it becomes something of value to you. When you had it, you never took note of that story, but later on, the story came to you, and then you are just reflecting, reminiscing on the story, and become a very high, something of high value to you, and then you are taking note of the story. But a case study is more official, more intentional, and more formal. Do we have more questions before we go to the second
Yes, we
section?
have a comment from Esther Ayodele. She says, Christian and Muslims would always fight on issues like this, trying to take advantage of each other. Then Amuchundi David says, the truth being emphasized regardless is that there is some semblance of humanity and empathy in all of us, despite how religion and tribe are used to paint certain narratives for whatever purpose. Then Okunlola Olusegun says the Muslim community version is more accurate. Yes, I think that's okay. Then we have new comments based off the things that you've been saying so far. Danlame Godfrey says, Sarah, the reason for the persecution may be as a result of some historical grievances. I think that is the main reason for the attack of this persecution, especially in the northern part of Nigeria. Then Julius Sunday says we can honor a story without hijacking it if we take away personal interest. Samuel Adenigba says, my submission is that the story is not about grace. It should be about what leads to the demise of grace and other people in the area. Religious sentiment will suggest otherwise when critically studied. And Obaluyi John says, in order not to hijack any story or narrative, the true intent of the characters and events leading to the storyline must be what the storyteller sticks to. So those are the comments that we have so far. Stephen Olaoshun says, objectivity should never be compromised. That was possibly reflected in the church version. And Baba and Joy says, the truth emphasized in the story is that human dignity is paramount. Grace practiced religion by doing, not by saying. Yes, so the parent of Grace owned the story and the parent of the child also owned the story. That's Benjamin Harino.
Yeah,
So,
I think
yes, we just have comments based off your conversation so far.
Yes, I think to some extent I agree with what we have said, but the overarching theme is we must realize that a story may have there may be many perspectives to a story. Our own perspective is not the only existing perspective. And stories are often said, told, or interpreted with a particular intention and interest. The Muslim will have their interests. If the religious identity will impart your religious identity and mine impart how we see a particular story. And then we as advocates, brand experts, church leaders, corporate organization leaders, theologians and researchers and student leaders in our various organizations must realize these pluralistic tendencies, the tendency to have plural form or plural interpretation of a story. I want to go a little bit further and mention that, like we have heard from Mr. Seun Okinbaloye, story could be used for political use. In Matthew 28:11-15, story was bought. The story was purchased. And up to today, some people believe in what the politicians, the dominant narrative, bought. When Jesus Christ resurrected, there was a false narrative that Jesus' body was stolen. This was an intentional effort by the authority to suppress the resurrection story and maintain political control. This illustrates how narrative can be constructed to serve political interests, even at the cost of truth. You're also familiar with Joseph's story, Joseph's brothers. Even while Joseph was alive, there was already news all over to his brothers, to everyone, to his parents that Joseph was dead. And he was alive for 30 years. There was a false story that Joseph has died while he was alive. And this gives us impression that story is very important, it's very powerful. We as a storytellers, as a researchers, as a brand experts, as an advocate, we must be very careful of the ethical responsibility that comes with the story we put out there, because we are creating realities. We are creating the space. We are creating perspective. We are shaping people. We are shaping our society. And whatever we put out there on our Facebook platform, on any platform, becomes very important on what people see and how people behave. Information becomes very important. We must know that information is very powerful. And then we can also talk about what happened in Germany during the Holocaust. And if in Nigeria, I mentioned to us the I have no shoe politician, the former president of Nigeria, Goodluck, who used his background, his poor background, to always, motivate people and connect to the grassroots. Team that mobilized youth across the nation for the answers. Also, for economic use, there is also possibility to use stories for branding, and that is what we'll be going. I think we'll be going after this session to the session by Dr. Modupe Adekanye on how stories can be crafted for branding and for economic use. If you maybe later on, I will play the advert by Ipo on how they craft their story for branding. Now, as I begin to round up this session, what are the ethical issues involved in storytelling? truthfulness. If you are involved in the garden raffle, make sure you are truthful. Honor the fact. Make sure you listen. If you have something happen, you see it, you witness it, make sure you also ask questions to listen to others. Respect people who are involved in the story. If something happened to you and your wife, or you and your husband, or you and your children, or you and your students, or you and your colleagues, or you and your church members, ask them for permission to share their identity before you share it. Do not just say, oh, it's a story, I need to go and share it. In fact, these days, church pastors in Africa must be careful also on how they share stories of miracle stories, of the testimony they share. Some of the testimonies shared in our big programs can be unethical. They are good because we are giving glory to God, but we must make sure that all this story we share also follow certain ethical standards. We must also be careful of the context. It is trauma. If you are sharing story of those who have gone through trauma, maybe sexual harassment, you have to be careful. One has to be careful of the history of wounds and the power dynamics. If somebody has gone through sexual harassment or other sensitive kind of abuse, or someone has been accused of the same, there is a critical ethical guideline on what you share about that. You must not just go and say you are sharing a story of survivor, and then you are sharing what happened to somebody that you have not taken permission to share in the public space. And then you must not share the story. And then I think Sabatier will be coming in the afternoon today to give us how some Nigerians use some stories to get money from Europe, from the West. Yesterday, we had a session with her, and it was a very painful reality. Many Nigerians share stories of women they help in their locality. Many pastors share the story of people they give food in their locality, only for them to enrich themselves, to get foreign aid, to get foreign grant. This is not ethical. And then you must also seek consent for representation. You must seek permission if the story, like I've mentioned, the story involves other persons. Another thing is confidentiality of names and details. You may choose to use pseudonyms for your story. If the name of the person you are referring to is Godwin, you may use a Victor. You may use other name entirely different to the person you want to that involve, in such a way that you use synonyms or pseudonyms if you want to use name at all, so that the real name of those who are involved, because like I mentioned earlier on, no matter how you want to see it, the story that we have shared is a story of grace. Grace, the primary owner of the story. Because the Muslim community sharing the story, we have to mention grace. The Christian will mention grace. The politician will mention grace. So grace, it's all about grace. So if Grace is alive, assuming Grace survived and she was alive, and she said, don't share my story, then nobody can share the story because she is the owner of the story. She is the one involved in the story. She is the one that is being commodified. So if you pick people's story and then you take it to get grant or on social media to get traction or to get like or to get money from YouTube, it is not ethical. Without due respect for those who are involved primarily in that story. The last thing I want to mention on that aspect of ethics of storytelling is you must also mention your position. We refer to this technically as positionality. Your positionality is where you come from. Where do you come from? Your story is never neutral. You that you are telling the story, you are not neutral. Your narrative is shaped by your position, your background, your identity, your religion, your denomination. If you are Ekwa, you are Baptist, you are UMCTC, you are Anglican, you are Catholic, you are Muslim, you are Christian. Whichever you are, the point I'm trying to make is this identity shapes the story you tell, and the story I also tell. So when you write a story, somehow you have to state your position. Say, I am a pastor, I am a religious leader, I am a theologian, I'm a brand expert, I'm a freelance journalist. This allows your reader to understand where you're coming from. And this also allowed them to have a rightful interpretation of the story you have written. Because when you write a story, you cannot write a story. I mean, your story cannot be separated from your personality. And your background you come from is very important as you write the story. You cannot remove your background, but you have to state it. No, you are not to be blamed for where they gave back to you, or where you school, or where you come from, or either you are from a rich home or a poor home. It's not you are not blameworthy for that, but you have to state it. Not setting it, I did a research where I studied a lot of Muslim communities in many places. And I'm a pastor, I'm a Christian theologian. And then I have to study, enter mosque, enter Muslim space. I entered close to 25 mosques or close to 40 mosques combined together within a space of 1 year. It's not a problem. I just have to tell my positionality, my position. I'm a pastor. I cannot deceive them that I'm not a pastor. I have to tell them I'm a pastor. I'm only here to study this and study that. So it's also a part of the ethics of the storytelling. Another one is a reflexivity. This is the practice of examining your own assumption, your biases, your emotional responses. Sometimes you want to write some stories. As you are writing the story, you are also crying, you're also weeping. So not only that you write the story to impact the society, the story you write also impacts you that you write the story. The story does not only impact the community, the story also impacts the person who has written or who has told the story. Sometimes you are doing some interview or you are writing some story or you are looking at some things, you want to put it down, you want to act it in a drama, or you want to act it in your brand space or your branding space or whatever, or you also become part of that story. Sometimes you are weeping, you are crying, or you become embarrassed, or you become guilty. You become guilty of the story. It's not your story, you are only writing it, but you become guilty of the story. So the story you are writing also impacts you, and this is what you call reflexivity. You will not know that it impacts you. You may not know. It's a reflex action. If somebody tell you the story of bitterness again and again, if you are not careful, you also become bitterful over time. It enters you. You begin to react to a story you are told, and that's why the Bible also tells us to be careful of our company. If you are in an environment where they share a story of joy, occasionally you also become joyous. But if you find yourself in a situation where the story that fly around, there are stories of accident, bitterness, sudden death, and sorrow, it can incite in you certain kind of fear. So what impact does the story have on me as the teller? That's what we call reflexivity. The last slide, the last session before, I think we already have Dr. Mrs. Modupe on the call, and she will be given a session after now. So let me just round off. The last part of this is the relevance of the storytelling in Nigerian present context. What is the relevance of the storytelling in Nigerian present context? Now, what do you do? In contemporary Nigeria, narratives are central to the conflict, political maneuvering, and media dynamics shaping national life. Below are some of the instances. The Benue massacre that's going on in Nigeria as an hot issue that we have shared some video of thought thief, giving a narrative and countering other narrative. You will need to carefully look at the story. I have interest in writing about Benue massacre. Very soon I will be there by the grace of God. I will be there to visit or to write about it. I've already written about others and I still want to write, but my own aim of writing is not to judge or to blame any of the parties primarily. My aim of writing this story is for advocacy, is to get to the root of the matter, is to have a balanced, objective story out there about what happens. It's not to, so if you go to a community or you go to a place you want to write a story for branding or for advocacy or for anything you want to write it for, if you have your bias before you go there, you cannot get the truth. So you have to go to your story. Sometimes, if it is not your personal story, you have to go to this storytelling space with objective mind, sometimes with a tabula rasa, with a blank slate in your heart. If you go, then another one is Plateau, Ambassa attacks in Plateau State, the Kwa, the Mangu, where audience of people have been killed. If you are a storyteller, it might you become very instrumental to educating us globally and locally on what exactly is the case and the issue that involved. The mob killing in Edo that is still ongoing on March 28, 2025, 16 outside Avila were lynched in Edo State, and there are many narratives. I've seen many people like Fawole Adenigba, Professor, there's one professor from Benue State University, it's a National State University, who had also written on why are people now commenting on the killing in Edo State, or what happened in Edo State, or some people think those who are killed there are criminals, and it's better they kill them. Why some people think that no, they didn't follow the due process. So you see some conflicting stories going in the media on this. Then some political narrative ahead of 2027 election. You become very instrumental if you know how to look at the story, analyze the story, and educate your community for the story. There are some challenges, competing or misleading narrative. How do you resolve this? Center your story at the grassroots testimony. If you are getting your story from a secondary source, state it. The story you get from secondary source is of less weight. But if you yourself go to the grassroots and you have grassroots testimony in your narrative, it becomes more powerful because you are the primary source of the story. But if you are not the primary source, do not claim to be primary source. The story also are often being politicized. How do you navigate this? Contextualize your event within history and state the possible power dynamics. Sometimes the social media also misinform. How do you cope with this as a storyteller? Use verifiable data. Use a consensus report and critical media analysis like the one Seun Okinbaloye do if your own is on political journalism. If your own is not on political journalism, if your own is on advocate, you can use Tears Fund. You can use 21 Wilberforce. You can also use Theo-Sight. Theo-Sight will be launching their website next week, where they'll be publishing stories on advocacy, story also on survivor stories and scars. How can we learn or transform through stories? I think maybe on Monday they'll be launching this online. You can also count on them because their story will be balanced, objective, and various views will be brought into the debate, not just one view or monologue. It will be a dialogue. A storytelling is a dialogue. You are not to write based on what you know. Even when you don't know other person's opinion, you have to write in a way that you acknowledge that there are other opinions that you may not know about this. And that is a responsibility. That is, you are writing story and you are responsible for what you write in the contesting space. So use critical media analysis. There are some data-based organizations like Christianity Today in the United States, like New York Times, like Time Magazine, that have reputable editors. That is, if you want to use secondary stories. But the best is that you get to the grassroots of the story. Religious and ethnic polarization. When you approach any story in Nigeria, maybe on social media or on television, have this awareness that Nigeria is polarized across ethnic lines and religious lines. And these two things, inform all the stories that go to our television stations or that go to our social media. So no story in Nigeria is neutral, ever. Every story is a baggage of ideology and polarity. And then loss of local memory and trauma. Reclaim narrative through oral history of community. And then if you can go to a community archive, then you can also have this first-hand information about story. I think I end it here, and then we can pick
all right, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah.
Well done. Thank you so much for that beautiful session. I'm sure that participants on the call have learned not just one or two things, but quite a number of things. And I think that one of the things that personally stood out for me was the fact that you said we have to tell our stories truthfully, and we have to respect other people, respecting their privacy and things that they don't want to put out. We shouldn't go ahead to defy that. Or you also mentioned going with a very plain mind, not being biased in our reportage of stories, even when we are the ones telling the story. So I'll take comments quickly and questions, things. Let's interact with the session. Thank you so much, Dr. Adeboye. Please let's appreciate him in the chat box with our reactions, with emojis. We can also type it. Thank you so much. It was truly insightful. So I'll quickly take comments. We have someone said, can we truly blame the church for sharing the story from its own perspective, especially in light of the persecution it frequently endures? The church merely recounted how a Christian woman lost her life while trying to save the child of someone from the same group that had earlier set their homes ablaze. Then we have Akakbo.
Yeah, let me
Akakbo
me just take it one. Then
all right, so you can go ahead.
Yeah, we cannot. In fact, we cannot blame the church. In my opinion, the church does not tell a story enough. The Nigerian church still need to work more on telling more stories. But three things. One is the church must not only tell the story of persecution, the church should also tell the story of survivor, the story of transformation, the story of impact, the story of success, so that as we tell the story of fear, we also tell the story of hope. The second thing I want to mention is that the church cannot always tell the story, and the church cannot always have all perspective for a particular story. But the church must acknowledge in the story they tell, and the church must understand that while this is their own side of the story, there is possibility of other contending perspective of the same story. That is where responsibility comes into play. That this particular story I'm writing, I'm saying, I'm only sharing from this perspective, from which angle I'm sharing this story. There may be other contending or possible other perspective of the same story. My opinion is that the church should acknowledge this, and then the church may not always have all the perspective. And the church is not to be blamed for sharing what they know. So the church must continue to share what the church knows, but the church must also, in their sharing, acknowledge that there are other perspectives of the same story. I think that is for the question. But again, I want to say that the church needs more story. We have to tell more story. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much, sir, for that response. Akapo Gloriana says, I strongly believe that Grace's story, though powerful, was unintentionally shaped and compromised by the way different groups framed it through their own lenses in regards to the church's perspective. In celebrating her as a martyr of faith, Grace's church emphasized her Christian sacrifice, but omitted key details, like the Muslim child she tried to save. This well-meaning reverence unintentionally stripped her of the complexity and humanity that made her so inspiring across faiths.
Yeah, I think this is a very wonderful question again, like other questions. This is what we call blind spot. Blind spot. When in the space of generally, either you are writing story or you are doing autoethnography, which is a research method for master PhD, or you are doing any sort of qualitative research, then you are asked to mention your position, and that's the point. That's the importance of stating your positionality. When you state your positionality, your readers will know your limitation, and your readers will also understand the blind spot. The blind spot is your biases that you never know. You'll be saying, I never have any bias. I'm not biased. I know what I'm saying. I'm saying the truth, but there are some biases that you essentially have. You will not know that you have them, but you have them. As a woman, as a man, as a Nigerian who has witnessed Buhari regime, who is now witnessing Tinubu, as a man who witnessed Goodluck Jonathan regime, who knew when a barrel of fuel was sold for 90 naira, 80 naira, 100 naira, and your own ferry highs, the same fuel got to 1,000 naira. You cannot do that biases about the economy of Nigeria. Whenever you are talking about Nigerian economy, you are only sharing your own bias. But you will say you don't have bias, but everybody is biased essentially. And so when you write any story, either for your PhD or for your master's or for your anything you write it for, the very best is to find a way to put a clause that explains your blind spot. You will not be able to explain your blind spot, but whenever you state your position, you say, I'm a Nigerian, I'm in my mid-20s, I'm a Christian, I'm evangelical Christian, I'm a missionary in the marketplace, or I'm a brand expert. My experience is such that I have gone through 3 universities. Then when you state this, your readers, your constructive readers will understand your blind spot by merely seeing your position. So part of the responsibility involved in storytelling is to state your background. Who are you that you are writing the story? When you state your background, it helps us to understand what you have written in view of your context. And so we will not quote you out of your context. Your positionality brings the context in which you're writing the story into view. And then you that you are writing the story become responsible. We that we are quoting, you become also responsible for the story that you are writing. So what you are saying is about blind spot. Let us know your position, and then we can help you to discover your blind spot. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. All right, so quickly we'll move on to other comments. Esther Ayodele says, these days, ethical rules are broken anyhow because everyone has access to social media. It is unfortunate. Emphasis on confidentiality is germane and must be respected. And she also said, yes, we have stories to tell. Akinwale says, thank you so much, Dr. Adeboye. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you so much, Sado. I joined a bit late, but the one I met was quite impactful. That's Bakari Adedamola. Ifunanya Wachuku says, on the question of positionality, is this also applicable to news stations who are bound by the rules of neutrality in storytelling? On the question of positionality, is this also applicable? You go.
Yeah, I think it's applicable. Maybe your network or mine, one is breaking, other Daminola's network or my network, one of them is breaking. Can you hear me, Daminola? Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Yeah, I said somewhere that can you hear me is another word for online meeting. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, I'm sorry for the interruption of the network.
I can.
Yes, what I want to say.
I can.
Yeah. What I want to say, Damola, you can add to this, and then Mrs. Modupe Adekanye has joined. You are more expert in that space than I do. But in my opinion, the news station as a station may not need to state, maybe new radio station or new television station or new media station may not have to state their positionality. But each of the program that is being heard, each of the program that is being broadcasted or broadcast, the person adding each of the session must be able to introduce themselves. When we say positionality, it is not a whole technical matter sometimes. It's a whole technical matter if you are talking about PhD and you are doing your PhD in qualitative research. In the post-colonial space, you have to state who you are, the background from which you are looking at this data to help your readers know the context in which your data is being analyzed. But in our simple day-to-day activities, you may not have to state your positionality in a very technical manner. It may just be to introduce yourself. To tell us, I am Godwin, I am a Nigerian, I'm from Kwara State, I'm a pastor, I'm a Christian, I'm into research, when you introduce yourself, by introducing yourself, you have simply stated your positionality. Either you are doing this in a classroom, or you are doing this as a brand expert, or you are doing this as a marketer, or you are doing this as a radio or television broadcast officer, or a community announcer, whatever role you play in this space where you tell stories, or you are doing this as a researcher, you just have to simply introduce yourself. Or you are doing this as a preacher. When you want to preach, it is not what we do here in Africa, in Nigeria particularly, is what we call protocol. We observe protocol. And we observe protocol and protocol and protocol. And when I travel to Europe, I never see this protocol being observed like we do in Nigeria. We spend a lot of time observing protocol in Nigeria, and it gave us a different culture compared to other parts of the world. Because especially in Yoruba land, you have to kneel down. Even when you are observing protocol in the official space, you still have to kneel down to show that you respect. It's a good culture. I'm not saying you should throw away our culture. But beyond observing protocol, one thing is more key, which is introducing the person that want to make the presentation in a very critical manner, that the audience will understand who is this person talking to us, or who is this person talking on radio or on television. And then they'll be able to understand what he or she is saying in the context in which he or she is saying it. And one thing I want to say is this: I've seen many things happening in Nigeria recent time. Since I think 2 years ago it started. On our social media, many of our pastors are taken up. They are being criticized. Their sermons are criticized. And I've seen many pastors taking themselves to court, to police station. I saw a pastor, Korede Komaya, arresting another pastor. I was not there. I only saw this on social media. Do not quote me beyond social media reference. So I was not there and I was not in Nigeria at that time. I only read it on social media. So I'm not sure what actually happened, but that's what we got as an impression from social media. One thing is this, we do not, sometimes the people quoting the pastors, sometimes pick the pastors and quote the pastors without also quoting the context in which the pastor has said what he or she has said. I'm not advocating for pastors in this manner. I'm only saying this is the responsible way to listen to stories. To listen to stories, you have to also listen to the context in which the story is being said. If you pick a singular story, 5-minute story or 2-minute story out of the context, and you pick it and you loud it, that is not a responsible way to engage a story. So giving us the background of the person who is speaking allows us to understand the whole issue that surrounds the issue that is being said, and to give us opportunity to have understanding of what is being said. Any other question? I think now we can round off. Any other question? Damola, are you there?
Any other question?
Yes, we have questions in the Mr. Seun, you can take it in the chat.
Right. Okay. One question says, let me take from. Okay, someone says both Christian and Muslims should stop attaching emotion of religion to unjust issue. I think that's just a comment. Then another person says, thank you for this insight. One great lesson I learned is to respect the privacy of the character in the story. Also to understand the owner of the story and acknowledge the person. I also learned to listen to other people's perspective on the story. I think that's a very great lesson to learn. Also, someone says, sir, please, I want to know if we can also share a story that is both fictional and real mixed together, since you pointed that our story must be truthful. That's a question, sir.
Yeah, I think I can just respond to that in 1 or 2 statements.
Okay.
Yes, in my opinion, you can mix the 2 stories. For instance, the story that I share today is not a real story. It's a fictional story that I formulated. So, but the point is this: if you are sharing fictional story, let us know that it's fictional. If it is a real story, let us know that it's a real life story. If you are using pseudonym, tell us it's a pseudonym. In the introduction part of the story, let us introduce us to the story. That's the point. Or you have appendage or a footnote. If it is a written story, telling us the context of that story. Is it fictional? Is it real? Or is it admixture? Or you are using a pseudonym or synonym or whatever. Just let us know that you do this. For me, as somebody who's into research space, I understand the importance of taking account and responsibility for every detail in the public space. Because the story you write, you might be taken for libel. But if you account every detail, the person you write about or the issue you write about, they will give you respect and kudos for what you have written. So if it is fictional or not, let us know. It can be either fictional or real or non-fictional or mixture, but let us know whatever one you are choosing to do. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Another question says, how can a pastor use storytelling method when preaching? Or how can a teacher use a storytelling method when teaching?
Yeah, I think I did this last Sunday. I preached in our church, one of the evangelical churches. I will not tell you the place. And I share one of my stories. I think I shared 2-3 stories that have a lot of conflict. And then I've been preaching in that church for quite a number of time, but I got several calls after the sermon, people thanking God for the transformation. I shared the story of when I got to my school, my undergraduate school, and I couldn't pay my school fees. And somebody knew my uncle who was late and took me somewhere, and I began my story with a conflict. The conflict part of it, I couldn't pay my school fees, a problem. I was about to be sent out of the school. And I shared the story to tell fathers on the importance of legacy they leave. And how I enjoyed the legacy of my uncle who was dead before I entered my university. So you can share story, your story or somebody else's story, but you must be neutral. neutral in the sense it must not be too detailed about somebody else's detail. If you know a woman who was involved in adultery, and you want to share the story of that woman, and you mention her name, and a family member know about it, they can take it to court, even as a pastor, and they are right. Because a story, and like I mentioned, there is no, every story is owned by somebody. That is the fact. Either a group of somebody or a group of people or one person. The story of Nurse Grace Akinwale is owned by Grace, although she was dead. So there's no story that is out there that does not belong to somebody. So if you tell my story, you are telling the story of my children as well. So you must tell my story well if you want to tell my. If you don't tell my story well, I may forgive you, my children may take you up. So you can share stories. You can use stories in the Bible, story of what happened in Nigeria, story of what happened in Benue, story of what happened, the plane crash in India, that guy that they only survived for. You can share those stories, but you must be responsible as well, not to go into private detail. Any detail that people cannot get on on public space, be careful when you want to share it. If you share a public detail and they accuse you, then you say it's a public knowledge already, then you are free. But if that detail is not on the public domain and you are the only one who knows the story, especially if your church member tell you don't share with anybody, pastor, don't share with anybody. Don't use anybody's secret to gain favor from people. And then the person will not be happy with you and they will not tell you the secret again. But you can use story, to win souls and then to transform people's life, even as a pastor. So I think now,
thank you, sir.
I think we can round it off now.
Yeah, exactly. Because
yes,
even your answer now gave a vivid explanation to the last question. So thank you so very much for that. So I would like to invite Mrs. Damilola for introducing the next
Yes,
guest.
thank you so much, Mr. Seun, and thank you, Dr. Adeboye, for that wonderful session. It's a lot to learn about storytelling, learning the balance, and being able to situate our stories properly while respecting ethical standards and principles also. Thank you so much. I'll quickly introduce our next speaker. I told you earlier this morning that today is packed with lots and lots of information. So please do not forget to keep jotting and keep writing so that you can put these things to use much later. Our next facilitator is Dr. Modupe Adekanye. Storytelling for corporate and individual branding, skills to build your brand and make an impact, mobilizing Christian identity in a public space. That's what she will be talking about, storytelling for corporate and individual branding, like we can see on the screen already. Dr. Modupe Adekanye brings both academic brilliance and real-world industry experience to her session on storytelling for corporate and individual branding. As head of influencers and partnerships across Nigeria, she manages one of Africa's largest influencer networks and has built successful partnerships across industries. She also holds a PhD in linguistics, with her research delving into the socio-political implications of African popular music and the multimodal narratives that shape public perception. In this module, Dr. Adekanye is going to be exploring how individuals and institutions can shape their brand narrative to align with cultural trends and social needs. Participants will be learning how storytelling works in influencer culture, how to craft brand identity in saturated markets, and how to remain ethically grounded while being publicly impactful. So I introduce and present to you this afternoon our next facilitator, Dr. Modupe Adekanye. Please let's make her welcome in the comment section by our reactions, our emojis. We can clap, we can type that she's welcome, and we can't wait to hear from her. Over to you, Dr. Adekanye. You're welcome, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Mr. Adeshola. Thank you for the introduction. And thank you, Dr. Godwin. Your session was quite impactful. I also learned a lot, and to the fact that I think is not on the call. So I'll be speaking to storytelling for corporate and individual branding. So I know that Dr. Godwin had already spoken so much about what storytelling is, what narrative techniques are. So I will just, start with what storytelling is in individual branding. So when we talk about storytelling in individual branding, we are talking about sharing personal narratives that reflect your values, your journey, your skills, your personality, your purpose. So it's basically how you want people to see you, what you want to know, what you want them to know you for, and how you want them to actually, see your values and speak to your journey, your personality, and your purpose. So people can relate to you and connect with your authentic identity. So that is what storytelling does in individual branding. You tell your story in such a way that it carves the way people see you. It carves how they interact with you. It carves how they speak about you and your journey. And then this is almost the same thing in corporate branding. Corporate branding is how you actually craft and communicate your brand's origin, your mission, your values, your goals, your past, your present, how everything interwoven, how it's all interwoven to be for you to be who you are right now as a corporate entity. So it's impactful narrative that resonates emotionally with customers, with investors, with employees, and the public. So when you use storytelling for your corporate branding, you're trying to appeal to people's emotion. You're trying to make them see you in a certain light by telling stories that will resonate with them. So let's look at some technical definitions of storytelling for identity, brand, and individual identity. Fogg and Yakobolu in Branding in Practice says that storytelling is the use of narrative to communicate the essence of a brand. Let's take note. The first one, the essence of a brand, that is the value, their mission, their values, their mission, their goal, in order to engage with an audience emotionally, not just emotionally, and cognitively, and create a memorable and meaningful brand experience. So what do we mean here? Apart from, aside appealing to the people's emotion, you tell a story, people appeal, people are like, oh my God, I really want to use this brand. It creates a source of brand affinity. You also appeal to them cognitively. This is what we see someone like Apoko Doctor, which I'm sure most people are aware of, what they do with some of the brands that they work with. And, they look at the formulas. They tell you that this formula that is used for this product actually is very good for your health. And that is why you should go for it. And then because you're already emotionally connected to the brand, cognitively too, you are connected to them. So that is brand purposing. That is brand identity. That is corporate branding. Another one says narrative identity refers to an internalized and evolving story of the self that integrates the reconstructed past, imagined future to provide life with unity and purpose. So when we are looking at branding, we are not talking about just the present. We are looking at your past, we are looking at the present, and we are looking at the future. So you tell the story in such a way that it weaves together what has happened in the past, how the past has shaped you into becoming who you are in the present, and how the present and the past are coming together to influence how you are in the future. You weave this story together in order to actually give that to your audience, to the people who are listening to you. So this concept underpins personal storytelling in branding, how individuals craft a story that explains who they are, where they come from, and what they stand for. Mr. Seun speaks to why storytelling matters. So I'm just going to touch on this again. People will always remember story. Now, when we talk about qualitative and quantitative analysis, when you do some analysis, put some numbers together, say that 10% of something is 50%, and then you don't remember. At times, you even have to cram it. But when people tell you a story, there's a way it resonates with you in such a way that even after that has gone, you always remember. When a brand tells a story, let's say, for instance, I'm going to get to some examples, but let's use, for instance, Nike. There's a way they tell their story in such a way that it appeals to you. And then when you go to a store, you want to buy a product, the first thing when you say Nike, okay, just do it. I'm going for a kind of journey that I need to persevere, that needs perseverance. And Nike says just do it. So why don't I just go for Nike? That is what I see everywhere. That's a story that resonates with me. So when we talk about storytelling, people are wired to respond to narratives, engaging stories that appeal to their emotions and not just numbers. Let's take, for instance, Big Brother Naija. People vote for candidates because Someone will come, let's use Lekon. I think most people voted for Lekon that year because he came and he was talking about how he came from nothing, how he struggled to even come into the house. And when people were dragging, people were like, no, let's support him so that when he comes out of this place, we will have pity for the people that will need money from him. That is the branding. So he created that branding for himself, that identity for himself, and he ensures that every step he takes throughout the house during Big Brother points back to the fact that he came from nothing. And then when someone bullies him, they're like, oh, because he's nothing, that is why they are bullying him. So he has appealed to people's emotion. He has created that identity, a narrative and story that people will remember, even when that doesn't have to do with numbers. So when they are narrating their friends, this is who I'm voting with for this person. They don't remember that how many % of people, they remember just that story. And then why stats might inform, stories inspire and it influence, which means a compelling brand story helps the audience see themselves in the brand's journey. So why people, for example, one popular adverts that we see on social media is the Terra Maggie adverts, where we see a woman cooking and the husband excited. People see themselves, family people will see that kind of whatever, and say that, okay, you know what, these things is happy. The husband will be happy. I'm trying to appeal to my husband. Let me buy this mic, maybe to give a new taste to my food. They see themselves in that brand story. They see how the brand is weaving their story. So brands with the people that they are trying to communicate to into that story. So let's say, for example, we could come out, someone says that I've helped 10,000 users. Okay. But someone now says, meet Stella, a small business owner who went from struggling to thriving using a platform and now has made over ₦1 million in sales within 2 weeks. That is a story that talks about where Stella started from, where she is now, and how much she's going to make in future. So that is what identity, that is what crafting a brand story feels like. It is, speaking to things that people can actually relate to, speaking to their emotions. So it says here from the book Journal of Consumer Psychology, Narrative Processing, Building Consumer Connections to Brand, he says that narratives help individuals make sense of brands by creating symbolic meanings. That is, when they see things, we are in a world of digital age now, multimodality, people see things and they're able to interpret more than what is being said. So symbolic meaning and are effective in stimulating emotional responses that enhance brand attachment. So as an individual, as a corporate entity, you must be able to weave together stories, true stories, not made up stories, actually, true stories that will actually enhance attachment to you. This is what people do on LinkedIn. Most people complain these days that I don't want to enter LinkedIn because once I enter LinkedIn like this, it feels like every other person is made. But no, what they are doing on LinkedIn is they are creating individual brand identity, individual branding. They are telling stories that people can resonate with. People then follow them to see their journey so that it can inspire and it can motivate. So let's see some case examples of some case studies of personal examples of individual branding. Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, I think Dr. Godwin mentioned her earlier. Through her works, both fiction and through her talks, which, for example, is the danger of a single story. She uses a narrative power to confront stereotypes, to invite empathy, to build cultural bridges, and her voice that brand strong, authentic, and insightful. Which means that at times when you mention Chimamanda Adichie, people are like, she's a feminist. Automatically, that's what people think. Why do they think so? They think so because right from time, gradually, she has created that narrative around who she wants to be, who she wants people to see her as. Someone who speaks for the less, for the marginalized, someone who can actually build cultural bridges. So her voice is very strong. It is authentic. Authentic is a key word. Authentic, which means she's not deviating from her usual self. When you see her outside, you see that the Adichie that you read online, Adichie that you watch online, it's the same person that you see physically. Another person is Ibukwa Awosika. Ibukwa Awosika speaks to ethical leadership, faith-based excellence, women empowerment. She uses her corporate line, boardroom battles, and faith work to inspire ethical leadership. Ibukwa Awosika does one thing. She says, as someone that is in government that's dived through different corporate journey, she speaks to the fact that you can be ethical, you can be religious, you can be a Christian, and you can still be firm and still make a difference. So if you want to go on YouTube, watch some of our videos, there are some links that I'll share on in the chat box subsequently. You are able to learn that as a leader, if you are trying to build your journey, you can actually, still be a Christian, you can still, be ethical and climb the journey. Another one is Lovi Ajayi Jones. Most people don't even know her. They know her as professional troublemaker. That's what most people know her as. So when you mention her, they say professional troublemaker. That's what I want you to know me as. And every single thing she does speaks to being a professional troublemaker. She speaks to navigating a journey, navigating fears, boldness, using humor, culture, courage to tackle deep issues. And she doesn't just talk about them lightly. She talks about them fiercely. She's fierce. She speaks about racism. She speaks about leadership. So she has built that brand for herself. So when you see her outside, you see the same person she positions herself to be online. So that is identity. Now let's go to corporate identity from the brand perspective. Like I mentioned earlier, another is Nike's Just Do It. Why it works? Why do people actually, why does it appeal to the users, the consumers of Nike? One, because it's short, it is universal. They've crafted their message in such a way that you don't have to think too much, you don't have to memorize. It is very easy. It is appealing. It's what you use for a day-to-day motivation. You want to stand up in the morning, I could just do it. And then you say, someone says, just do it, your head goes Nike. It also bypasses excuses and speaks directly to motivation. And then it aligns perfectly with Nike's brand story. If you go back to read their brand story, how they came to be, what their journey has been, you can see that Just Do It actually speaks to it. I know they come out every day and say, it is not a slogan. This is a brand identity. This is our life. We live it. We don't just speak it. We live it. So in all of the products that they put, all of their products, everything they build, everything they release, it speaks to that. Just Do It. We had to work with them. I had the luxury of working with them when they moved to Nigeria. And then when we're talking about, their shoes, their clothes, all of the brand stories that they were telling us speaks to this brand identity. That is Just Do It. Out of here. So that is brand identity. That is brand message. That is brand positioning. Now, we've been talking about storytelling, but storytelling is not the only way to build narrative techniques. Now, when we are talking about narrative techniques, the specific method and strategies that storytellers use to craft and convey their stories effectively. How can you convey your stories effectively? What are the tools you can use? And is it just about telling personal stories? No. There are different techniques that can be used to shape your story in such a way that it builds your brand identity, it builds your corporate identity. So these are the tools that can be used. So the first one here is personal stories. Now, personal stories are based on individual experiences. It reflects personal growth, your challenges, your key moments in life that has shaped you to be who you are. Most people actually they actually listen to personal stories. When people talk about their personal stories, we are moved. When I was in Daystar Church one day and the pastor was talking about how they started their church, what has made them, grow, how he had to use his faith. And since then, to be honest, that was why I was the convert. That's why I kept going to Daystar, because of the way the personal story, because I was convinced on how he said the stories. Now we need to know what are the characteristics. It's subjective, because you cannot verify. It is what they say it is. You can't verify. It is very subjective. It's based on how they see it. It's based on emotions, but it is intimate. This is you letting people into you to see exactly what others might not see. This is how you see me. But let me tell you a personal story that actually shaped me into becoming a brand manager, that shaped me into becoming a researcher, that shaped me into becoming a pastor. It is intimate. It is subjective. It is focused on emotions, on reflections, and on insights. When you use personal stories, what you are trying to do is you are trying to appeal to people's emotions. You are trying to get them to connect with you. So it has to focus on emotions, on reflection. There's time to reflect on the journey, on what has been done, and insight on what can be better. It is also told in first person, because the personal story, you have the use of hi. Like I said, what is it used? It is used to build connection and empathy. As you're trying to craft an identity for yourself, to position yourself, which is like, as I stated before, it is done on YouTube. We are trying to build a connection, people to follow you, people will look forward to you, who want to hear you speak, who want to invite you to different speaking sessions. You have to build empathy. It can be motivational, it can be inspirational. You give different contexts that people can actually relate to, and it can be in form of blogs, speeches, and memoir. An example is a pastor sharing his conversion stories. Another example is Tony Elumelu. Tony Elumelu has constantly come out to say that, to speak about his journey. When he has new intakes in the banking industry, those people that are trying to recruit into UBA, it tells the story of how he grew from being a banking trainee to one of Africa's most influential entrepreneurs. So if you are in the banking industry and you are here to know that, okay, if Tony Elumelu can do it, I can do it. So you are inspired, you feel connected. And so when you look at Tony Elumelu, you know that, okay, this man started from being a bank trainee. So that is identity. Looking at him now, you see that he is hardworking, he is determined, he is focused, just from listening to how he has grown from being a bank trainee to one of Africa's most influential entrepreneurs. Now, aside personal stories, we have the use of testimonies. And we all know what testimonies are. People come to church to give testimonies of how, pastor prayed, on how pastor gave a prophecy, and then you stepped out, and after you stepped out, this thing happened to you. Those are testimonies. So they are first-hand accounts, typically used to provide evidence, to validate experiences, and to bear witnesses. It's used in legal, journey, social justice, or advocacy context. Before I go further down, let me look at testimonies in the recent happenings that has happened. The Benue State killing. When the Benue State killing happened, people didn't really know what was happening, but VDM went to Benue State, took testimonies, made videos of people speaking to the experience, how the herdsmen came, how they murdered, how a woman lost her children and her family, and you could see the emotions from that testimony. And what is that drive? That drive advocacy, that drive social justice. People went on social media to say that, you know what, justice, we need the president to come to speak to it. We need a solution just because someone went and took testimonial videos from people that experienced it. So it gives a bit of evidence, it validates experiences, and it actually convinces people. So what are the characteristics? It is factual, but emotionally compelling, because you are trying to get to a certain level. You use emotions. So you have to use emotions to craft the story, to drive advocacy, to drive the justice, or to validate whatever it is you're talking about. It is structured to provide credibility and clarity, which is why most testimonies often comes with videos. You can say, go to the newspaper released on this day, you see evidence of this thing that I'm saying. It is structured to provide credibility, and it can be oral, it can be written. So what are uses of testimonies? It can be used for human rights advocacy, courtroom and food commissions, social movements, and campaigns. Now let's talk about campaigns. When President Tinubu wanted to campaign, he used testimony of political sacrifice and legacy building. He talked about what he had done in Lagos, how he was the godfather, what happened before, democracy, how he was there. And then what it came down to his slogan, Eminokon. How did he come about this slogan? Because he gave testimony of what has happened in the past. So that's what testimony does, to appeal to the emotion of people, like, I've been there, I've done all of these things. So it means I have the capacity to actually do the emotion. So what's the next thing? I am the right person, Eminokon. Aside that, President, we have Peter Obi. Peter Obi talks about how he was frugal with spending when he was the governor, how he has integrity, how he can provide evidences of the spendings when he was governor, how he actually cut and slashed so many wasteful expenses while he was in leadership. So he then positioned himself in the election as a man of accountability. That is, if you are looking for somebody that will be accountable, that will spend the money wisely, you are looking at me, Peter Obi. So he used the testimony to actually support his campaign, to provide evidence that he's capable of doing what he said he can do. Another example is Pastor Adeboye. Everyone is familiar with the way he constantly talks about testimony of being a former university lecturer, a mathematics teacher, not knowing how to feed, not knowing how to be, just following Christ, and someone in between got called to be a man of God. And from there, God has taken over. God has actually provided his needs at every point in time. So with his testimony, what is he trying to say? If God can lift me, he can lift you too. So when you look at that, that becomes their brand identity. We talk about presenting, people say that that is what we know him for. And why do we come about that slogan? The testimonies. Same thing we have been seeing with Pastor Adeboye. And then when it comes to corporate branding, it can be used for brand testimony, brand positioning. For corporate world, you can create a brand identity by getting testimonials from the people you've worked with. Someone comes out to say that, when you are using Dove soap, it gives you boil. And then they bring together influencers to say that, we are going to send you this product, use this product, and come out to say the evidence of this product, what actually this product does. And then some series of influencers will come out and say that I use this product and it's not true. It worked perfectly for me. Their testimonial has changed your brand positioning from being the wrong thing to use to being the right thing to use because of the use of testimonial from influencers, from people using it, and people jumping on that kind of narratives. Another one is oral histories. Now, when we talk about oral histories, we have recorded, transcribed interviews, capturing people's memories, personal commentaries about historical events or everyday life. So we have historians going back to the past to write memoirs of things that happened in the past, of things that they've learned from past, and they do research. They get evidence from people. They get interviews. They get people to write their story, to tell their stories, to record all of this. They put it together, and then this shapes a narrative. This shapes an identity of group of people. So it is often community focused. because it is oral. So you hear stories of, oh, this has happened in Yoruba land in 1987, this thing happened, and that is why in Yoruba land we are this way. In Hausa land we are this way. In Igbo we are this way, because it is community focused. We get record of everything that has happened, and then they put it together for oral history in order to create a narrative, that to create an identity. It's also used to preserve cultural knowledge and collective memories. It is used to emphasize storytelling in natural voice. So it's not just a number, it's about things that have happened, things that we've recorded, that people are saying that is true, and this is what we need you to believe, and that is the identity we are trying to position. This is what we are trying to make people to see. So what is it used for? It is used for historical research, for cultural preservation, for educational resources. So most people have access to things they don't have access to in the past for research. When I worked on my PhD thesis, I needed music from different parts of Africa. I don't know their language. I cannot access some things that have happened in the past. All I have to do is read books that have been written, books of testimonials, of oral histories, and this has shaped, my research. So that is one thing that narrative oral history can do. And others sharing stories about tradition, migration, significant local events to pass on heritage to younger generations. So as an individual, if you are trying to do individual positioning, you can try to get oral history from, okay, your name is this, why did they name you this, and how has it inspired you to, or your journey to become who you are today? You get stories from your father, from your grandfather, you record the stories. Some even do like a video, a documentary, and they push it out. And when people see you, they connect you back to your history, and then they're able to relate with you. They're able to see whatever it is you want them to see, your values, what has shaped your values, what has shaped your journey, and that is brand positioning. So we also have digital narratives. As I mentioned earlier, the world is now a digital space. It's now so small. It's no longer the age of, you have to go to a University of Ife before you get a book. Everything is now digital. You can just type. So stories are told. They are enhanced through digital media, combining text, images, audio, video, interactive elements, and hyperlinks. So what I've characterized is it is multimodal and immersive. So now we see videos of people recording themselves, speaking to their journey, speaking to how we want people to see. They speak boldly. It is recorded. It is put on all forms of social media. People can access it. And then when you watch it, you are convinced. You want to watch that journey. You want to listen to that journey. You want to see how they became who they are. That is the work of digital narratives. So you have to ensure that you incorporate digital narrative in telling your stories for your brand identity. You use videos, you use visuals, you use, pictures, you take photos to craft identity. And that's what most Instagram influencers do. You go on their page, you follow somebody because of their video, because of their pictures, because they relate to the stories they tell. And that is the identity. See them outside, you are happy to see them, you are elated. You've not met them before, but you can actually resonate with their journey because you've seen it on social media. So it can be linear, it can be interactive, it allows user participants, which means you can drop your comments. I mean, this meeting we are having today is an example of digital narrative. We are listening, we are dropping comments, we are interacting, we are getting brand positioning. When you see Dr. Godwin outside, you see him as, this person actually gave an insightful lecture. He has crafted an identity for himself as a very great teacher, as a great lecturer. We love that. So that is positioning. And we are able to ask questions, we're able to relate with him, both now and even after the meeting outside. So we have social media storytelling, documentaries, web-based project, video games, VR experiences. So an example is interactive web documentary about climate change that lets users explore different regions, watch interviews, and see data visualizations. Now, what is the use of storytelling for research and advocacy? Storytelling is qualitative research. Like we said, when it comes to storytelling, it's qualitative, it's not quantitative because it does with stories, It is used to capture and convey lived experiences, emotions, meanings, and social realities that quantitative data often overlooks. When it comes to quantitative data, you just see numbers, 1 + 1 = 2, and that's why you arrived at 3. But when it comes to story, they tell you a story of 1 + 1, why 1 + 1 = 2. What is the story behind this? Why is it possible? How do you add it up? And so you are convinced. So you're able to connect narratives through interviews, focus group discussions, observations, case studies, ethnographies, in order to actually come to a conclusion. So when you are saying that, I've come to the conclusion, like short girls are always hungry. Why are they hungry? You do like a interview, you bring short girls together, maybe you put them in a small area, and what the way they react, you see the way they react to things. And because of that, different experiences you've done, different observations, you then come to a conclusion. Then you write a story to back that conclusion. That is quantitative research. That is the importance of storytelling. Then you use stories to illustrate patterns, to highlight contradictions, to humanize data. You're not just putting data in the air. Rather, you are humanizing the data because you are relating to people, you are relating to experiences, to how people do their day-to-day activities. And it is used for narrative inquiry, autoethnography as a methodology. Now, the value, it allows participants' voices to be central. So now you are bringing people together, you are putting these voices, their voices are integral, they are very important to the conclusion you make. So for example, if you are a brand manager, you are trying to say that, you know what, as a brand manager, I want people, or even like as a pastor, I want people to come to my church. Now you come together, you bring people together. What are your experiences working with me? What are the experiences you've had, come to this place? What are your testimonies? You put this together and put it on social media, and people are convinced that this research, this journey you've documented is actually enough for me, has convinced me to follow you as a brand manager, to want to work with you, to want to come to your church, to actually want to actually listen to you talk. It is useful in education, sociology, even in psychology. Now, what about for advocacy? An example is the Benue issue that I raised earlier. For advocacy, we mobilize communities. This thing is happening in your community, you are not happy about it. Let me make a video of you talking about this thing that is happening. I want to position myself as an advocate for you. I want to see myself as a voice for the voiceless. So how do I do that? I bring people together, I mobilize community, I then push for policy change. I think I'm like, I went to Benue State, this is what is happening, this is very wrong. I'm an advocate, I want people to actually speak to this. I want social media to go viral, to push this narrative. So in order to drive change, that is what storytelling does. It appeals to people's emotion, to real life situations. You are not putting together fake narratives, rather you are putting together what exactly is real, environmental crisis that people can see and they can relate to. It is authentic, it is relatable, it is human-centered. It is meant to evoke empathy, urgency, and to actually build a shared sense of purpose and solidarity. How important is storytelling for branding? The different techniques I've mentioned, how are they important for branding? Why should you use storytelling to build a brand for yourself? Remember that it creates emotional connection. It's not just numbers. People are able to want people to relate with you, which is why they will listen to you. So you have to make them feel what you feel. You have to make them see what you see, and you have to make them understand what you sell as a brand or as an individual. It is meant to, because storytelling evokes emotion. It builds trust, joy, aspiration, nostalgia, and empathy. It also leads to stronger brand loyalty and higher customer engagement. Like I said, at times when I want to buy my running shoe, I buy Nike because I can actually relate to their human potential, to the emotion behind their message. So I go for that. So it's the same thing as human. You are trying to build a brand for yourself. You have to ensure that you evoke emotion, tell stories that are true, so that when people see you outside of the story that you tell, they can actually relate that, okay, this story is true. What this person is saying is actually true. An example is the brand, the chairs, Tunde Onokoya, that does chairs branding. He became a voice for those people in the slum by building people in Oshodi to play chess. So when you see him outside, when you see the way you act outside, if you act proud outside, you are confused. You'll be confused that, okay, this person says this thing on social media, they act differently. But when you see that they act exactly the way they do on social media, you are convinced, and then you want to follow them, you also want to commit to their journey. It also differentiates your brand. You don't want people to see you the same way they see everybody. You want them to see your brand differently. So which means your story, what makes you stand out is different from what makes another person stand out. That is why you have to use the different narrative techniques. You have to use storytelling to differentiate your brand from everybody. Now, some people follow Pastor Hiren. Now, why they follow Pastor Hiren on social media? They say that he appeals to the young generation. You can go to church, you can go with your tattoo, you can go with multiple nose piercing, you can go with your rings. He's telling you, just come, whether you are wearing trousers, whether you are tying scarf or not. People go to Pastor Hiren church because they believe that this is for the Gen Zs. You can hear our voices. Meanwhile, some people follow Pastor Adeboye because they believe that I don't believe in piercing tattoo. And this person speaks to this journey. This person speaks to how you can be a better person. Both speaks to how you can be a better person, but then there are different ideologies. And then people see who it is they want to follow between these two, and then they go to CCI and some go to the Redeemed Christian Church of God because they have different origins. It's same value, it's the same Christianity, the same mission to bring sinners to Christ, but then what actually shapes their messaging. What are the different experiences that they've experienced to shape who they are and where they are right now? So your storytelling is important to differentiate you from other brands. Then it is to build trust and credibility. So some as Pastor Bolaji, it features stories, real stories from different people going through trauma. And then when you see people talk about their trauma, you are surprised, you are shocked, and then you want to tune, you want to watch on YouTube, you want to see the kind of things that people are going through, and if you can relate to it, if you want to go for those kind of services, it's going to inspire you. So you have authentic storytelling, that appeals to the social people, that appeals to people that people can actually trust. And then it supports consistent brand identity. So you create a brand identity that is consistent, that is not different, a consistent voice, a consistent tone across different platforms. So it means that when you are speaking on LinkedIn, the kind of message you are passing across on LinkedIn, the same you pass across on social media, the same you pass across on social or your own blogs, and also in real life, it is the same kind of messaging. The tone is different. So your brand is not what you say it is. Today you say that it is not what you say your brand is. It is about what people feel, what they believe, and what they share about you. And those stories are how these feelings take shape. The stories you tell is what inspires people's feelings. It's what makes them feel. It's what makes them believe. And that's what they will share about you. Now, building blocks of a strong brand story. What can actually make or mar your story? What can make or mar your brand identity? Authenticity. You have to be real. It has to be honest. So the fact that you have to tell a story that, appeals to people does not mean you have to make up that story. When you make up the story, at some point, there'll be a sleep. And then once there is a sleep, people start doubting every single thing you say. And then you don't have a brand identity anymore. You have to go back and start building. So it has to be authentic and it has to be clear. What exactly are you positioning yourself as? What do you want people to see you as? What is your identity? Do you want them to see you as a faith-based Christian who is going in leadership? Then it means that you have to keep clear. You have to ensure that message is clear, such as and it has to be relatable. The people you are selling it to has to be able to relate to it. If today someone comes up and say that, I fly millions of hair, I fly aeroplane, someone like me might not relate to it, like, okay, you have a brand, you have a private jet, okay, all the best to you. This is not a story I want to relate to because I don't have a private jet. I'm not telling you how you actually got your private jet. I'm not interested. But it has to be relatable. When someone talks about how they've grown, how their journey has been, you can relate to it. And so you follow them. So your story has to be relatable in such a way that people you speak to can actually share out of that experiences. You have to be visible with values. It is not confrontational. You are not forcing your messages down people's throats. No, it has to be with values, and you have to use wisdom, not volume. So it's not about, okay, I'm putting out story every day. I'm pushing out content every day. No, what is the wisdom there? What is the value? What do people stand to gain? And then you have to share testimonials as part of your brand. It's okay for you to say that, okay, this is who I am, but you need people to also say that, okay, this is who this person is. I've experienced this person and I believe in their identity. I believe in their corporate branding. I believe in their identity branding. And then it has to show values, integrity, service, and excellence. And then it has to reflect price, in tone, and in the action. You can't say that I'm a brand that believes in ethics and somewhere in between, you are giving bribes to people to clear your brand, or you are paying bribes for people to let me go. So it's not the same thing. And you have to be self-aware. Know who you are, what you stand for, what makes you different, your value, your strengths, and unique proposition. So which means you get a paper, you write, what is my strength? What exactly is my weakness? What is my proposition? How is this different from every other brand out there? How can I stand out? You write it out. And then what kind of stories can I impute? Should I use the moral? Do I have to start with talking about, how my journey, how my family journey has inspired me? Do I want to just write, get testimonials from people? So you have to be self-aware to define your mission, your voice, and target audience. And you have to be digitally literate. So the world has changed. You have to optimize different platforms in order to shape your identity. You can't keep keeping quiet and say that no, people want to know. You have to use that LinkedIn. You have to use that Instagram. You can no longer say I'm not a social media person. People relate more with people that are in the social space right now, in the digital space. So which means your messaging has to actually appeal to the difference. You have to understand how the different places work. Is it Medium? Are you just a writer? So explore Medium, explore blogs, explore social people that you can collaborate with, partner with in such a way that it can influence your stories and how you share them. So you have to understand digital literacy. How does digital literacy work? You have to actually take your time to understand that, to optimize your social presence, to build your identity as a brand, and to build your identity as an individual. So one thing I want us to reflect is How do you want to integrate your story and your faith into your brand? How do you want people to see you? What are your values? How do you think the different narrative techniques, how do you think can inspire your story and your journey? So this brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you. So if you have any questions, any comments, I think you can pick them now. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Dr. Modupe Adekanye. That was a really, really good one. And I believe that I could see people dropping comments and questions in the chat box as you were presenting. Personally, I want to speak to a few things that stood out for me when you were talking about the fact that you have to be clear with your message, what you want and what you're standing for, you know, so that people would not be confused about your identity or the identity of your brand or your organization. And also when you spoke about recently, you just spoke about maximizing the digital space. You know, there are some of us who like to be like, I like to keep my private business private or my business to myself. The world has evolved, and based off everything you said, it is time for us to now, you know, put ourselves out there if you really want to make an impression and create a lasting one at that. So I'll just take a few comments that we have in the chat box before we take questions. So Esther Ayodele says stories are unique and personal to the storyteller, but when people when told appropriately. Oh, but the stories win people when told appropriately. Then she said, being authentic is important to sustain followers. Samuel Adenigba says, authenticity is key. Being unique is an advantage. Akinwale Okoyemi says, well done, Ma. Can we say that the mottos of churches and organizations are brands when it comes to maybe the slogans or the mottos that churches use? So I believe that's what he's trying to ask. Would you like to react to that first before I go on?
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Anshola. I believe that once we have slogans, they are always what your brand stands for. Now, I mean, churches generally, we are meant to drive changes. We are meant to bring people to Christ. However, there are different slogans. That is what I meant when you say you have to stand out. There are different slogans that will appeal to the people, to your environment. So at times, slogans are a work of context, of environment that you are in. So what slogan do you think what will make people want to actually come to your church? You have to put a slogan together that will appeal to those people. So yes, it is also a sort of branding. Slogans generally are also a sort of branding for both individual and corporate entities.
All right, thank you. I believe that has answered this question. We also say, wow, thank you, Doc. Thank you so much, Dr. Mrs. Then Israel Emmanuel says, what book do you recommend for digital literacy, Ma? Thank you very much, Ma. This was indeed impactful session. So do you have any recommendations for digital literacy that people can read or familiarize themselves with?
Yes, I do. I think I will share it after, so maybe it will be shared with everyone via email after this call.
All right, so we'll take note of that and we'll get it to you, Mr. Israel Emmanuel. All right, so as Mrs. Sam just shook a table that I'm on. Oh, what table is that? Not putting yourself out, right? I think it happens to the best of us. Now that you have learned, you should do better on the basis of this course that you have just joined. All right, Yunusa Ezra says, that is impressive, Doctor. What are the challenges of maintaining a cohesive brand story in multi-channel marketing? The challenges of maintaining a cohesive brand story in multi-channel marketing.
Thank you so much. I think one of the major challenges, again, like I mentioned, is, understanding your vision and actually understand the different channels that's what works for different channels. Now, for LinkedIn, for example, most people, I've seen people sharing videos, on LinkedIn trying to do brand messaging. People actually skip those videos because LinkedIn is more of a text-based kind of platform. However, when you go to Instagram and you put text-based platform for your brand, people will not interact because it is meant to use multimodal devices where you are meant to use videos and images to drive your messaging. So you have to, first of all, understand exactly what works for different brands and then understand how you can then shape your messaging in order to collaborate with the different platforms that you are using. So not understanding what works for the different platform can be a problem if you are trying to do multi-channel marketing. And also not having the right hands, which I think most brand managers have issues with. I've had cause to work with different brand managers who want to do influencer marketing, and then they don't have the people that can actually craft their script, that can understand the kind of story that should be pushed out on the different platforms. For example, you need to ensure that your stories are not salesy, they are organic, they can appeal to the emotions of the people. For small brand managers, because you just want to talk about your brand, you end up putting communication messages that says, Junior is the best in the world. I want to see if they just scroll because I'm not interested. So you have to understand how to shape your messaging and have the right team to help you shape your messaging in such a way that it appeals and it aligns with the different followers on the different channels. Also for that, I also have some books that can also help with multi-channel marketing. I will share with Mrs. Sam after this call, and it can be shared.
All right, thank you so much, Doctor, for that response. It was quite precise. So thank you for the presentation. Thank you, Ma. Thank you, Doctor, for the presentation. Then you said, how do you maintain your authenticity whilst appealing to various targeted audience? How do you blend your message and story to suit the audience without losing your authenticity? And that's from Israel Emmanuel.
Thank you for that question. I think one important thing is to understand your target audience. Who are your target audience? Now, if you are trying to craft together a message, say for example, for the older people, we have a client we're working with now, Salon Pass, it's a pain patch relief. The way we craft our message for the older people, you have to learn what exactly interests them. Once you understand what interests your target audience, you can then suit your message in such a way that it can also still collaborate that way. So you don't have to change your vision. If your vision as a brand is, say for example, the salon pass I work with, the vision is to create pain relief patches for everybody, irrespective of the generation, whether you're older generation, whether you're younger generation. Now, for the older people, we have to craft a message to say that, if you're in the market after a long day at work, you can use this patch for your pain. Now, for the younger people, we are still talking about pain. If you come back from the gym, you can use this for your pain. Now, what we've done successfully is to look at what the different product does and how it can work for the target audience. Is it the younger generations? How can you ensure that? How does your service, how does your brand, how do they cater this younger audience? The older audience, how will your service, how will it cater to them without using the tone of your messaging? So you just have to ensure that it actually works and it actually appeals to them, and just craft that vision and mission in such a way that they can relate to it without changing at all what your mission stands for, what your vision stands for, and what exactly you as a brand, what you stand for. You don't have to change that at all. I hope that answers the question.
I hope that has answered your question, Mr. Israel. Well, thank you so much for that time, that impactful lecture, Dr. Adekanye. And thank you also to everyone who interacted with the lecture by asking questions and dropping comments. Olori Ebi has dropped a fire emoji, and I think that that's to tell you that was really good. Israel Emmanuel says, yes, Ma, thank you, Ma. So I believe that you've been able to do justice to that. In the absence of other comments or questions, Dr. Adeboye, would you like?
There was a question. I don't know if there's time. There's one more question. If there's time, I'm not sure. There's a question by Adesoji and Yolowo, but if there's no time, we can then.
Oh, sorry, I just saw that. It says, thank you, Dr. Adekanye, for your presentation. What branding tools are available to churches and Christian organizations for re-imaging their brand to shift people's perspective to believe in the church as an institution to restore the nation to prosperity? I don't know if Dr. Adekanye can quickly address this before she takes her leave. Dr. Adekanye, are you still there? All right, maybe we would find a way to get her to respond to that after now and probably reach out to you after this session. We know that she has another engagement immediately after her lecture here, but we're really grateful for your time. We're really grateful for your time and everything that you have delivered on this lecture today. So, Dr. Adeboye, would you say something? Do you have something to say to our facilitator before we move to the next lecture?
Yeah, thank you so much, dear Dr. Modupe Oluwa Adekanye, on behalf of the management team and the Board of Trustees of Theo-Sight, who are scattered around the globe. We thank you for your time. Thank you for preparing this clear, coherent, and very impactful session. Many of us, it is the first time we are hearing you, and we have heard you well, very clear, very professional, very impactful, and very practical. I hope that in the next few moments, we'll continue to make reference to this presentation you have made as a place where we had insight on branding and as a place where we begin to brand ourselves and our organizations. Thank you so much for your time and your presentations. We'll still get back to you with formal vote of thanks and appreciation. May the Lord bless you and keep you and continue to grant you height as you represent Christian value in the public space. God bless. Thank you, Damilola.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Adeboye, for that. I hope we're not tired. Please let's drop in the comment section how far so far. I want to feel the pulse of our participants and everyone on the call this afternoon. How far so far? I mean, how is it going? Hope you're not tired. Hope you're still open to learning. We still have one more lecture to go for the day, you know. So I want to see your reactions and comments in the chat box for everyone on the call.
Damola, I think we have two lectures.
To do.
Two more lectures. One from Adalushola, then one from Sabatier from United States.
Oh yes, but they are quite brief and they wouldn't take so much of our time. Yes. So I would be introducing our next speaker, especially because someone already told me in the chat, in the comment section, that they are good. So we're good to go. All right. So our next speaker is Mr. Kehinde Olushola. It's been a good time with you. Thank you so much, Bolaji Elizabeth, for that feedback. It is great, but we need break if possible. Okay, doctor, could we take 5 minutes for people to probably, for a short recess? Dr. Adeboye, could we take 5 minutes?
Yes, I think maybe 3 minutes because yeah.
All right, so you can mute and quickly go to pee and all of that, take water, snack on something, and then we would introduce our next speaker in 3 minutes. So by 2:06, we'll have our next speaker on.
Yeah, maybe we can take a 5 minute break. Thank you, Damilola.
All right, so that's fine. Yeah. So Dr. Adeboye has given the go-ahead. He's also taking the break. You can see him holding the bottle already. So you can also go get drinks and then...
Yeah. It's all over to you, Damilola, all over to you. Whatever you think is the best, I'm fine. But just that we have to, because we have people joining from the United States, and then we are already giving time, and then we have one more session. But I'm fine with the book. Yeah. I think the IT should keep tab when Lou Hand joins so that we can get to know.